I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's at 6:30 p.m. Welcome to the meeting of the Harwich Board of Appeals on this date, June 26, 2024. The purpose of this meeting is to hear and decide applications before the Board of Appeals which have been brought pursuant to the bylaw of the Town of Harwich and the Massachusetts Zoning Enabling Act. As required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting, which we are. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to inform the chair. During this meeting, the chair will recognize promptly a member of the board, the secretary, and attorneys presenting a case to inform the chair if a protocol is not being followed. While in open session, those wishing to present comments or ask questions regarding a case are requested to fill out an information form on the podium. I didn't check. Is there one there tonight?
A what?
A name and address or so?
It's right up.
Okay, so if you're going to make a comment, you want to speak in an open session, you go to the podium, and if you could, just sign your name and whatever's required there, just so we identify you later on, okay? And I'd like to have chairs ask the board member to identify themselves.
John August.
Alexander Donahue.
Brian Sullivan, chair.
Chris Murphy.
Kenneth Dixon.
And Rachel Lohr.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to go off going to change the agenda slightly here tonight. And I'd like to recognize David Ryer, who served 15 years on this board and is retired as of this meeting. And I'd like to offer a motion to recognize David Ryer. Have a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So you bear with me here for a moment. At last week's Select Board meeting, I was invited to make remarks regarding David Ryer's tenure on the Board of Appeals and request the Select Board to recognize his contribution to the town of Harwich, which they did so. Tonight, our board is going to take the same opportunity. I'd like to preference my remarks with a quote on the definition of community volunteerism. Volunteerism, at its core, embodies a spirit of selfishness and community service. It is a cornerstone of civil society driven by individuals who willingly contribute their time, skills, and resources to support their community and causes they believe in. Our town boards and committees consist of residents who contribute their time for the benefit of Harwich. These committees often work towards solving complex issues, making decisions, and recommending policy that helps to shape the kind of community in which we live. Harwich is fortunate to have many volunteers whose knowledge and skills are resources assisting our town government. Tonight, I want to pay tribute to one such volunteer, David Ryer, who is leaving the Board of Appeals after 15 years as a member, serving at least 6 as its chair. 2 years ago, anticipating he was serving his last term on the Board of Appeals, David stepped down as chair. I may have succeeded him, but I can assure you that it is challenging to replace the experience, knowledge, and leadership which Dave brought to the table. Last year, Dave wanted to retire from the board, but at my request stayed on 1 more year to further assist the members and myself as I gained additional experience as chair. I would like to make a motion that the Board of Appeals recognize David Ryer's tenure, contribution to the Board of Appeals, and the Harwich community. Do I have a second?
Second.
Before we vote on that, I want to give the board and others, perhaps here tonight, opportunity for any remarks they may want to make in discussion regarding David. Does anyone want to have anything to say?
I mean, I was on the board now for 5 years, I believe, and Dave is the chair for most of it. Well, 3 years, I guess you've been on the last year and a half or so. I found him, he was an unbelievable person for us being able to stay consistent online. He was consistent. That was, for me, one of the more important things. He dove into the law. I mean, if there were any kind of questions, he'd come with things that I don't know how he found them. I found them to be invaluable. When I found out he was retiring, I said, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Luckily, Brian has done a wonderful job in stepping up, because that's how much I felt Dave was giving to this board. He did a great job.
Oh, thank
Gonna
you,
miss him.
thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Dave Ryer is the, excuse me, the fellow who asked me to join this board. I've known Dave for a number of years. And prior to the board, I knew him, and he approached me at some point here, going back 7 or 8 years ago, and asked me if I would join the board. He had more faith in me than I had myself, but Dave was always a pleasure to have here. As has already been mentioned, he was extremely knowledgeable about the law. He was an interesting man. He had a career prior to before retiring, and he managed to travel around the world, and he gained a tremendous amount of knowledge from the various places he actually worked. But I know for me personally, I'm going to miss having him on the board. Not that Brian cannot do and does do a wonderful job, but I kind of enjoyed David every now and then. He brought a smile to my face.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I would just echo, as I think the newest member, the comments. I think Dave was very instructive in trying, as you said, to bring consistency to the approach, but also to try to find a way to say yes to a fair amount of issues, within the boundaries that we work in. So I really appreciate that.
Excellent, okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone from the public like to say something? Chair recognizes Attorney Kroll.
Thank you. I echo all of your sentiments, but from the other side here, having to present cases before the board with David on the board, he was the standard bearer. I had to always ask myself, what is David Ryer going to ask me? What is he going to come up with? What part of the bylaw have I not covered? He is a retired lawyer from Connecticut. And I enjoyed presenting cases. I probably presented more than most have in the last 15 years before him, and it was a pleasure to present cases to this board, especially with him as chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Very nicely said. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to close the public discussion and I'd like to vote on the motion. All those in favor, recognizing David?
Aye.
Approved? His last day, I offered him to take a gavel home, and he said, I don't need the clutter. So if David, you're watching, if you want to come back and get the gavel, it's all yours, it's waiting here for you. Okay. Thank you, folks, and I appreciate you allowing us to change the agenda. I also want to make one additional agenda change tonight. Regarding case number 2024-15 for Flying Horse Equestrian at 339 Queen Anne Road, they're going to ask for continuance, but I think first, if you would read in the case, and then we'll take care of the
Certainly.
continuance.
Case number 2024-15, Flying Horse Equestrian LLC, being represented by Attorney William Kroll. The owners of the property located at 339 Queen Anne Road, assesses map 59, parcel P3 in the RM zoning district. The applicant seeks an appeal and decision refusal of permit application by the building official and/or special permit or an alternative for a variance of 325 attachment table 2, attachment 2, area regulation to construct a new building pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325, 54, and 52, and as Mass General Law 48, sections 3, 6, and 10.
Okay. I have a signed continuance from Attorney Michael Donovan, representing the applicant, and I'd like to make a motion that we accept the continuance.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I'm going to sign the continuance.
Do you have a date on that continuance?
I believe it, well, there's not on there, but I believe it was for July.
It's July 31st. July 31st.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, case number 2024-13, 22 Ocean Avenue LLC. Through the attorney, James Knockross. The owner of the property is located at 22 Ocean Ave, assesses map 6B, parcel L10, in the RH2 zoning district. The applicant seeks special permit or an alternative variance for 32554 non-conforming structures and uses. 325, attachment 2, table 2, area regulation to construct a new shed pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw, 32554 and 52, Mass General Law, 40A, sections 10 and 6.
Okay. There are no comments from, excuse me, a second here, wait. All right, there was no concerns, was a comment made by the Harwich Police Department. The Board of Health indicated the proposed shed cannot cover any component of the existing system. Should the contract not place the shed where the site plan as determined and the sites in the system components end up covered by the shed may be ordered to be relocated upon discovery. Therefore, care should be taken by the contractor to ensure placement is accurate. There were no other comments from other town departments. There was received a letter from the abutter at 20 Ocean Ave. Did everyone on the board see the abutter's letter?
Yes.
For the public record, I will read it in. Attention for myself and honorable board members. My name is Robert D. O'Neill Jr., and I am the trustee of the Kelly A. O'Neill Supplemental Special Needs Trust, which owns a property at 20 Ocean Ave, Harwichport, Mass. The property has been owned by my family since 1953. I am writing in response to the proposed variance request for a shed located at 22 Ocean Ave, Harwichport, Mass., which directly abuts Kelly's property line. This request is on the agenda to be heard before the meeting on June 26, 24, case number 13. I recently received notification that the new owner, Mr. Harvey, is seeking relief for the newly constructed shed. The shed is greater than 102 square feet and is required to be 20 feet off a side lot line. I believe that this request is a result of a complaint that I filed with the town's building department. There has been significant amount of work performed at 22 Ocean Avenue property without the proper required approvals. This includes the construction of a 4 to 5 car parking lot that is assessed access from the newly created entrance on Zeifler Road. Zeifler Road. Mr. Harvey had filed for a variance special permit in July of 2022. After several continuances, he chose to withdraw his request. I am attaching the town's prior correspondence regarding this application and my initial letter that I submitted to the board when Mr. Harvey made his initial request for a variance special permit in 2022. My letter highlights our concerns at that time. Fortunately, these concerns have come to fruition. I am also attaching the plan that I had prepared along with a complaint form that I submitted in February 2024. In my capacity as trustee of the Kelly A. Trust, it is my responsibility to protect her interests, and I cannot support this request as presented. Based upon the information provided and the lack of consideration towards the abutting properties, I am not in favor of the requested variance and would ask that it be denied. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. I look forward to addressing the board. Sincerely, Robert D. O'Neill, Jr. Thank you. Chair, now ask the applicant, representative, to introduce themselves and any person assisting you.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Norcross, representing Doug and Sarah Harvey. Mr. and Mrs. Harvey are behind me in the audience in the blue and white shirt this evening. Just a bit of background. So my clients purchased this property in November of 2021. As you read in through the abutter letter, they sought a much more significant approval process in 2022 for a tear-down rebuild of the home, which they eventually abandoned and decided to leave it in its current, without any real renovation, and to sort of concentrate on some exterior yard work for the property. Late last year, beginning of this year, they contracted with Pine Harbor to install a new shed at the property. There was an existing shed on the property that was tight to the south lot line. The new shed was installed in essentially the same location. However, it is a bigger structure than what was there before. My clients, like a lot of homeowners, I think, did not realize that the shed would require a permit. And so it was installed by Pine Harbor. And you, again, read in the abutters letter, there was a complaint filed with the building department for the lack of a permit. And my client was notified that the shed was in violation without proper permitting and that we'd have to go to the zoning board. So they engaged with Paul Sweetser to prepare the site plan that you see today, and then I was later brought in to file the zoning application and the hearing this evening. Based on my review of the bylaw, the shed, because it's pre-existing non-conforming, if we're going to essentially change, alter, or extend it, it requires a variance, which, as you know, is a different hurdle than that of a special permit. I did want to, before we get into the criteria of a variance, did want to address the size of the shed. So the Pine Harbor specifications listed as 8 by 12, which even my rudimentary math is 96 square feet. However, as Paul Sweetser explained to me, he's required to measure for setbacks and for building coverage calculations from the corner boards. So when you add in a few inches all the way around the shed, that's how it ends up as 102, 103 square feet under your calculations, as opposed to the shed specs that were provided by Pine Harbor. So that's the reason for the difference in that number. So a 100-foot shed requires a 20-foot setback under your bylaw, as opposed to a shed under 100 square feet is a 5-foot setback. In this instance, we are 1.92. The prior shed was 1.65. So as I said, essentially in the same location. As I'm sure you've heard before, the variance, it's a 3-pronged test, and we're required to meet all 3 prongs of this test in order to receive approval. The first prong is unique conditions affecting the shape, topography, or soil conditions of the land or the building. I'd suggest we have a unique lot. It's 40 feet wide. It's quite skinny. And even in this neighborhood with mostly small non-conforming lots, it's a very skinny lot. Given the narrow shape of the lot and the existing septic components behind the home, there's really no other location on the property that can be used to locate a shed structure than what's proposed in the application. As you see on the site plan, we are not alone in having a shed tight to the lot line. Both of our immediate abutters also have sheds tight to the lot line. If you drive around this neighborhood, you see that's where a lot of sheds are located, just because these are small lots. There's not a lot of space for the sheds in the yard unless you put it close to the lot line, and that's generally the area that makes the most sense. Number 2 is, owing to the unique shape of the lot, a literal enforcement of the bylaw, which in this case would be a literal enforcement of the 20-foot setback, would create a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. I'd suggest a literal enforcement would create a hardship to the applicant in this instance. While the house has a basement, it is only accessible through a bulkhead, making it difficult to access lawn and maintenance equipment, bikes, things of that nature, which are perfectly suited for shed storage. By enforcing the 20-foot setback, it's effectively impossible for the applicant to have this shed on the property. It won't meet the 20-foot setback no matter where you put it. Even if it was under 100 square feet and had to meet a 5-foot setback, It's effectively in the middle of the lot, which either brings it in non-compliance with the Board of Health because of the septic components, or it's just smack dab in the middle of a backyard where you have very little backyard area to begin with, and a shed in the middle of that area doesn't make a lot of sense. I think being able to have a shed, again, is important to the use of the property, and there was a shed there that my clients use, and they're just trying to continue that use with the new shed. Finally, that by granting this variance, the board will not substantially harm the public good or derogate from the purpose or intent of the bylaw. Again, it suggests that it will not harm the public good or derogate from the purpose of the bylaw. Setbacks are instituted under the bylaw for several reasons. First, you want to avoid excess noise to abutting property, you want to avoid invasion of privacy concerns, and you want to avoid massing by being too close to lot lines. In this instance, this is not living area, it's a shed. There's no concerns with noise, it's for storage. It's not a situation where it's housing mechanicals for pool equipment, a generator, or an AC condenser, which again creates noise and can affect abutters negatively in that fashion if placed too close to the lot line. There's, again, no one in the shed living, so there's no issues with privacy, windows or whatnot that are looking out onto an abutting property. Lastly, it's about 10 feet high. It's located behind, I believe, what looks to be at least a 7-foot high fence, and adjacent to the abutter's shed. Therefore, I don't think there's any real concerns in terms of massing or looming over the abutting property. So in terms of the purpose of a setback, in this instance, I don't think by granting the variance, you're derogating from the intent of the bylaw, as there's adequate privacy, no noise issues, and again, no issues with massing. I think a number of towns have created a shed bylaw or added the shed to the bylaw in terms of setbacks. And if you have a half-acre lot, it's pretty easy to meet that requirement, a 5-foot or 20-foot setback, because you have land. But in this neighborhood, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to meet that setback. And so these are tight lots. And so I think as you drive around this neighborhood, you see these are where people put the sheds, because that's what makes sense for the property, and oftentimes that's the only place they can locate it on their property. And so I suggest that to the board that this request is reasonable. Again, they're not trying to push the limits with any sort of building or living area or anything of that nature. It's just a shed for storage, for the use of equipment and bicycles and things of that nature. So I appreciate your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. I assume the construction of the new shed has been completed?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Is there any other planned exterior construction for which a permit has not been filed or granted?
I am not aware of, again, I was only involved in the shed, so I'm not aware of the additional work that requires permitting. I understand the abutter's letter, which I read today, referencing the driveway access off of Zephyr. I haven't heard from the town on that issue. Again, we were here for the shed piece alone. My clients told me their landscaper did speak with the highway department when that access was installed, so there was at some level a town review. So that's something we may have to discuss with the building department as a separate matter.
Why was the shed replaced?
Well, I think they wanted a newer one, and they wanted one with a little bit more area. The prior one was 50 square feet, wasn't all that big in terms of providing housing for landscape equipment, et cetera. And so that was the reason for a new shed.
And how was its condition at the time of replacement?
I did not see the prior shed. I would have to ask my clients in terms of the condition of the prior shed.
No, the floor was
Well,
falling out.
Doug, you'd come up to the mic if you want a microphone. You can mention it, just, you gotta come up.
Yeah, I'm Doug Harvey,
Oh, Mr. Harvey, you can sit with your attorney.
Oh,
You don't
okay.
need to. Please,
Yeah, just to answer that question, I'm Doug Harvey. That original shed was, the floor was falling out of it, it was in disrepair. It was just really falling apart, so that's the reason.
all right, so, in looking over the bylaws, even though the shed was a pre-existing non-conforming setbacks, in my opinion, because this is an accessory structure, it's not afforded the same protection under the bylaw as a single or two-family dwelling. and does not qualify for a special permit, I know we're here for a variance. Therefore, obviously, a variance needs to be done. And I think that, and that's why I asked you the question about the condition, that brought that up. In the past, we've granted a variance to replace a shed or an auxiliary structure that was in disrepair. But the granting was done to replace the structure under its existing footprint because it was in disrepair and it had to go forward. Okay, I mean, we looked at it, the fact that, at least, from my point of view, and the board in past judgments, looked at it that it had lost its usefulness, and so there was a hardship created because of the disrepair, and you brought up the fact of the flooring and so forth. Obviously, this board has not, because it's replaced, has not had an opportunity to see that shed. Okay? And in a way, one term is, it's a, willful abandonment, the fact that it was taken down, and now we're looking to put in a new shed, and a larger one. Personally, I appreciate the issue on the 98 square feet that you had proposed to you from the shed company. And, on a single-family home, regarding on the footprint, you're allowed to have a little bit of overhang for windows or little small balconies and so forth. So I personally don't have an issue regarding the shed not being, requiring it to be a 20-foot setback based upon the outside dimensions of the top of the roof line and so forth. But it is 98 square feet, and on a replacement, the 5-foot setback is required. Now, I went back down the property again, and I looked at it, took some measurements, and didn't measure the shed. I don't know why I didn't do that, but, and there seems to be, looking at the site plan, there's an opportunity to place that shed in a conforming location, 5 feet from the line. And again, I'd have to consult with the site plan regarding the sewer system, the septic system. But the requirement of the Board of Health that the shed shouldn't be placed on top of the system, I think personally, when I looked at it, there seems to be room to move the shed and have it 5 feet from the lot line, where it is now a larger structure. We're not replacing an existing shed. We're not replacing the shed on its original footprint. We've installed a shed that's twice the size of the original one. And I think it warrants, a different look, as far as to do so would require a full 5-foot setback based upon being 100 feet or less. So that's my point of view, okay? I'd like to have any other additional, questions from the board, starting, Ken?
Well, obviously, it's always frustrating when somebody comes in and asks for forgiveness rather than permission. A little surprised that Pine Harbor wasn't aware of the requirement, because they do every shed in the town of Harwich.
Yeah, they have the market corner.
And so I think they probably went by 8 by 12, it's 96 square feet, and that's where they drew that conclusion. Again, I'm not gonna dispute the building inspector. If they gotta take the outside measurements, so be it. Now, Brian, I don't know where you're suggesting that shed could go, because in its immediate position that we've looked at it, you can't go any further, I guess that would be north, because it's gonna be on the septic system. You can't get any closer to the house. It'd have to be on completely the side of the lot, if that's what you're suggesting.
I actually took a picture of it.
I understand. I was there too.
All right, and I put my tape measure out 3 feet. You pass that down to Ken, and then let me take a look at it.
So where's the septic system on that picture?
I don't know, but I think there's room there. We need to look at it. If anything, a continuance would be required to see the fact, but it can be moved further away from the from the side setback, on the sideline, in my opinion. And when I spoke to the building commissioner today, I did ask him about that, and he looked at the plans. And again, he's not here tonight. He's not, we have to consult, we have to look at, but I believe that shed can be moved over to the right and possibly, you know, not be on top of the system. But I could be wrong. And I think there is room in that yard to have where it's twice the size of the shed that's being replaced. This isn't, in my opinion, it's not a situation where someone's got a shed in disrepair and is trying to just replace the existing non-conforming structure. They've doubled the size. And in doing so now, it's a whole new structure situation, in my opinion, and going to a bigger size should require that they meet the setback required on a new structure, where the original one, which was smaller, has been abandoned.
I have no further comment. But this is a standard Pine Harbor 9 by,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
8 by 12 shed, so it's under 100 square feet. I mean, whatever it ended up at, it's nominally. under
I
100
agree,
square feet.
so I'm not looking for a 20-foot setback.
50-foot shed was also nominally under 100 square feet. So,
Right.
for my opinion, it requires the same, they both require a variance. You couldn't just, you can't by the bylaw replace a shed with a shed.
Right.
So if we place one at under 100, we can place a second one under 100. So I'm not too concerned about the size. I am surprised, as Ken pointed out, that Pine Harbor either didn't know about a permit required or would actually do the work without seeing a permit. That's disappointing or surprising. I'll let you make a decision on what that is. It's putting it against the fence is exactly like everyone in the neighborhood has. I mean, it's not as if they're setting precedent. In fact, it's in the exact same spot.
I understand.
And so as far as you are, generally, I try not to be too easy on variances, but I don't see where else you could put it on this lot. Moving it into the middle of the yard doesn't seem very practical. I guess you could do it. And also the hardship, you know, being that you'd have no place, you wouldn't be able to have storage. I understand that. That is a hardship. I believe that this could be argued to, you know, to meet the requirements of a variance.
Okay.
Since if it was a 120 square foot nominal, like it would be a totally different situation, but the attempt was made to keep it under 100.
No, I would agree with that. John?
Did Pine Harbor do the demo as well of the existing
I
shed?
beg
Did
your
Pine Harbor do the demo of the existing shed? They removed the
No.
old one? No, you had somebody else? How long was the time gap between
Oh,
the replacement? Like,
within a week.
oh, yeah. Yeah, I would kind of agree with Ken and the folks, I think this is consistent with everything down there, right? You drive down the street, everybody's got a shed, it's all close to the lot.
Not disputing that.
I do think, as we've done with other buildings, I know accessory building a little bit different, is, it is not really increasing, it didn't come close to the property line, so it's not increasing the nonconformity. They went slightly farther, away from the property line. It is slightly larger, but to the front and the back of the lot, it's still in conformance, right? So the only nonconformity was how close it was to the lot line, and they didn't increase that. So I think from that perspective, I don't have a big issue with it. I worry more about precedents in that neighborhood. If we're gonna make every person, when they replace their worn-out shed, go 5 feet from the property line, it's gonna be a big issue in the campground.
Again, if they're, as we've done in the past, and every case has to sit as a stand on its own merits. Just because we did it this way, this address had it done this way, doesn't mean we go forward. But in the past, we've given approvals to replace auxiliary structures, accessory structures that are non-conforming to the same basic footprint. And in my opinion, where this wasn't done, the same basic footprint, that's where I have a difference with it.
Yeah. I understand, I don't
Sure.
think it's that significant, right? I mean,
understand.
you're talking about a foot or so around the perimeter of the building, right? So,
The campground, excuse me, is a very unique area. And this shed in my opinion, and as has been mentioned by the gentleman to my left, we don't want to set a precedent. At least I don't. And that shed is comparable to most sheds in that neighborhood, as has been repeated. Beyond that, I have nothing to comment on.
All right, any further questions from the board? I'd like to open this up to the public. Anyone here that would like to address the board regarding this applicant? Please do.
Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Robert O'Neill. I'm the gentleman that submitted the letter to you, as well as the complaint to the town. I can appreciate the attorneys going through the timeline. I won't rehash some of the things, but I know we're here just to discuss a variance for a shed, but there is a little bit more history involved here, and I think it's relevant to any decision that may be made here. So I'd like to, and I'll speak briefly, I'll go through just a quick timeline that happened, excuse me, November, December of this past year.
Take the time you need.
Thank you. As I stated, I am the trustee for my sister Kelly Special Needs Trust. My sister has Down syndrome. It was my parents' wish that she always have this house at the Cape, because Cape Cod's her happy place. That's where she likes to be. She's very happy here. I would have loved to have been able to bring her here tonight, but unfortunately, she recently lost her ability to walk. So I'm here on her behalf. As the attorney had previously stated, there was a submission to this board in 2022 for the demo of the existing house at 22, the opening up of an additional driveway off of Zolfa Road, and some grading. After several continuances, they decided to withdraw because there was opposition from the neighborhood. This past fall, specifically November 16th, I received a call from one of my sisters. I'm one of 9 children. I have 5 sisters, 3 brothers. One of my sisters, Kathy, she's Kelly's caretaker. She called me and she said, "Hey, the neighbor next door is excavating our driveway." I said, "What are you talking about?" "Oh yeah, there's a machine out there and they're digging out the driveway in the front." I said, "Well, for what reason? Is this something that the town's doing? Are they doing some water work in the street or something?" She said, "I have no idea." So I currently live off Cape, so I wasn't able to come down to November 18th. 2 days later, I got on site. There was equipment parked in our driveway. Not a big deal, as people have stated. Campgrounds is tough for parking. Didn't have an issue with it. I pulled down, got out, walked into the lot. I met Mr. Harvey's landscaper, Kevin Norton. He's from, I believe, from Holliston. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" And he says, "Oh, we're gonna put in a new driveway over here." I said, "Do you know where the lot lines are?" He said, "Not really." I said, "Well, okay, let me give you a little bit of background of my background. I am a licensed professional land surveyor, civil engineer. I have a mechanical engineering degree. I am a certified project manager, and I'm a licensed construction supervisor. I have worked the last 45 years for federal, state, and municipal agencies in many roles, working for buildings departments, working for the engineering department. I've also done quite a bit of representation for developers, and I've done some developing myself. And in that time, I've learned that you really have to pay attention to the rules and regulations, whether it be zoning bylaws, building codes, Conservation Commission, or whatever, but you also have to be a good neighbor. And you have to be, appreciative of the people around you, because no matter what work you do, you affect your neighbors. So I had a pretty good discussion with Mr. Norton. He told me, oh, Mr. Harvey's a great guy. I do all his landscaping. He's buying up some properties. I'm doing everything for him. I said, well, great. I'm happy for you. I hope you make some money. I said, but let me show you where the property line is. I came out to the front. The iron pipe was still actually in the ground. He had excavated all the way up to the street. He was about 1.5 feet, 2 feet over into our property. So I said, well, here's the pipe. It's right here. You went beyond the line. He assured me, okay, I'll make it right. I said, nope, things happen. I said, but you should really know where the lot line is. I walked him through the property. I explained that the trees were on the property line. I showed him the iron pipe on the Zolfa Road side. I said, here's the line. Whatever you do, please don't come across it. We won't have any issues. Just backfill, use decent material on the driveway. We had packed gravel on our driveway. No issues. He assured me he'd do that. About a week went by. I got a call on the 25th that the landscaper had come into our property, removed the picket fence that my father had installed, and was installing a new fence for Mr. Harvey 3 feet inside our property line. I said, okay, I'll be down there on the 25th. I called the landscaper several times and said, stop the work. You're over the property line. You're putting cobbles in on our property. You put a fence in on our property. Stop. When I got down there, the landscaper wasn't anywhere to be found. So, as a licensed land surveyor, I staked out that line. Every 15 feet, I put a point, including in the base of those trees that are on the property line, so that when I do get in touch with the landscaper, I can say, look, your cobbles that you put in for the driveway are over the line, your fence is completely over the line, and the cobbles that you built on the other side on Zolfa Road cut in front of our property as well. Later in that afternoon, I actually met Mr. Harvey. He came out to the job site. I showed him where the points were, and I said, your cobblestones come out in front of our property here. We can't get it on the driveway when you leave it like that. He actually agreed. He said, you're right. And I said, and as far as the fence is way inside the property. No, we don't want the fence there. If you want to put a fence up, great, put it on your own property. So I explained to him my role as the trustee, and he said, well, why don't you talk to your siblings, and we can leave it there, and we'll remove it in the spring. I said, well, I don't know if they're going to go along with that, but I will call them, and I will talk to them. After that, I met, on the 27th, I went to the town hall. I met Mr. Mead, the building commissioner, and I explained the situation. I wanted to understand what the requirements were for a fence, and, I said to him, there's a fence on our land, it's not gonna stay there, but there's other work going on this property. They were supposed to apply for a special permit if they were gonna open up another driveway on the other side coming in from the Zolfa Road side. And he said, well, that might be an issue with the highway department. I went over to the highway department, and they said, no, you're absolutely right. They do need a special permit, but it's enforced by the building inspector. I went back to Mr. Me, and I said, hey, they definitely did additional work over there. I don't know if any of the other neighbors have an issue with it, but I don't know why you need a 3 or 4 car parking spot on the Zolfa Road side, plus an additional 2 parking spaces coming in from Ocean Ave for a 2-bedroom house. I don't know. So, I went back home, I spoke to my siblings, and they said, no, we want the fence gone. So I called Mr. Harvey and I said, we want the fence removed. And the response I got was, you want me to remove the fence? Take me to court. So I said, okay. So I immediately got in touch with my own fence people, and on December 12th, I brought down my crew. We removed Mr. Harvey's fence, stacked it in his driveway, and we put up a fence according to the specifications for the town. So that's a little bit of the history on that, but I understand that we're just here for the variance for the shed. But to come in here and say, oh, I don't know, I wasn't sure where the property line was, or, geez, I had no idea, this wasn't a mistake. This is just, I'm gonna do whatever I want, and, you know, those rules don't apply to me. So I find it very hard to believe it was just some kind of honest mistake. And to look at the shed and its location, we have a shed. It's shown on Mr. Sweets' plan. If you look at it, it's 49 square feet, and it's 5 feet off the lot line. It complies with the current zoning. There are other properties in the neighborhood, but if you look at both Mr. Harvey's property and our property, they're the two largest properties anywhere in the campground. They span from Ocean Ave to Zolfa Road. So when you get back and you go to your Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 10, which allows for a variance, the 3 points that are hit: soils, topography, and lot configuration. There's no ledge, there's nothing in the soils that would prohibit him from putting anywhere on the lot, other than convenience for himself. As far as the shape of the lot, it's rectangular. It's 40 by 110. Same as ours. Our shed is 5 feet off the lot line. And as far as the third criteria of topography, you have a plan, and actually I have a full-size plan of that plan that Mr. Sweets had submitted. I also have some pictures. I'd be happy to leave everything with the board. I made 5 packets for the members. It's not like there's a big hill on the lot or anything. If I could drop,
You can please share it with members.
I think that should clarify some of the things he came up with. Yeah. Which part is he talking about? I had another survey, it's different than his. That's what I would have.
on that lot,
You say this-
could be moved to.
And the fence I put up was brand new, right with the old.
It's just not where he would
Completely
prefer to have them.
Thought I was doing a good thing.
So, I could look at some other issues on that plan, but I know that it's not under your
What's that other guy's?
review for this evening, but when you get into like site coverage, it's well in excess of the 35 requirement, and that doesn't even include the shell driveway that he created for impervious area. And I'm basing all my math on the plan that he submitted. To talk more about the shed itself, town has a 5-foot offset for a reason. Most sheds, people put lawnmower, lawn equipment in there, some combustibles, gas. It's only 5 feet off a lot line. These lots are only 40 feet wide. If you look at the state building code, which is the 780 CMR, 9th edition, and if you look at sections 16 and sections 23, they have criteria where if you are 4 feet or less on a wooden structure, they'll ask to install a 2-hour rated firewall on a building or any type of a structure. Now, they don't typically apply that to a shed, but you have a shed that is, right now, based upon Mr. Sweets' plan, 1.9 feet off of the lot line. That is technically 90% less than the 20-foot offset. And if you apply the 5-foot offset, it's a 60% variance from that as well, from a 5-foot offset. That's a pretty big ask. And to say, oh, I didn't know where it was a mistake, I don't agree with that statement. And as far as the septic system on the lot, there is room to move that over. So I'm asking that the board deny this, or he can reduce the size of the shed and move it over 5 feet, and he doesn't need a variance. I really have no other comments. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. If you have comments, questions of me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Board members, are there any questions for Mr. O'Neill?
No.
The fence that is there right now,
Yes.
who paid for the construction of that fence, I guess?
I did.
That's the fence that you had done in December?
Yes, sir, I did.
Thank you.
And if you look at the fence, and if you look at the pictures, the fence is 8 to 10 inches inside our property line. And that's what Mr. Me recommended we do.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to? Yes.
think I should ask to clarify some of the things he said? We have a chance, yeah. So, let me start.
Pam Adams, I live at 18 Ocean Avenue, on the other side of O'Neill, okay? And I have no problems with the Harveys have done. The Harveys have improved the neighborhood. Our house, our problem is we can't use our driveway a lot of times because we have shingles, roofing shingles falling off from the O'Neills that land on cars, okay? I understand what he's saying, but if you're gonna go around and make them move it, then I think you should make everybody move theirs 5 feet over. Our lot is 40 by 40. We can't put one on there. If we were to do one, it would have to be on the property line, you know? So I'll just say, they're not the best neighbors, okay?
Did you sign your name on that? I would appreciate that. Is there?
I think it's actually on this table here.
Oh. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks for helping us get organized here.
Do best I can.
Is there anyone else in public that would like to be heard? Okay. Hearing none, let me just pull up would like to make a motion to, actually, before we do that, do you have any other comments?
I do, Mr. Chair, if I may, just
Thank you.
briefly. I think my client would disagree with some of the characterizations that were made by Mr. O'Neill in terms of the neighborly relationship and how things progressed. I guess it's the old adage, good fences do make good neighbors, perhaps. Again, we're talking about a shed. It's not a structure, it's not any living area. Everything down there is tight. That's just the neighborhood the way it is. Again, yes, it's bigger, it's still within the lot line, but to say move the septic so you can then move your shed over, so you can have a shed on the property, I just think is unreasonable. I think the request, again, it's a variance. We don't have to have soil shape and topography, we just have to have one of those in order, under the variance criteria, and I believe we have a very thin lot at 40 square feet. And as been noted by several members of the board, I mean, if you're gonna require sheds to now meet setbacks in this neighborhood, no one's gonna have a shed, I think, basically, or hardly anyone, given how properties are down there. And you have houses that are 2 feet off the lot line, let alone a shed. So again, I think it's important to recognize, we're not talking about a house, and it's a small house, and they would like to have a shed for some additional storage, and that's it. And I don't think it's fair to characterize them as pushing the envelope or trying to overdevelop this property. They tried to develop the property, the neighbors didn't like that. And so they kept the house the way it is, they've added a shed for their use, and I think it's important to keep that in perspective in terms of what they're asking for today. Thank you very much.
Question on that parking area. I know it's not on the agenda tonight, but does that require a variance or a special permit that was not attained?
I don't know, to be candid with you, I saw Mr. O'Neill's letter today, so I have not had a chance to investigate that matter any further. I'd have to look into that in terms of what approval would be required for that, if any.
As I recall, back in 2022, and again, I didn't go back and re-research it, but part of the building plans at that time did involve, and the application from the board did include what was gonna be happening with the access on that back street. That was part of the application that was continued. There was discussion as far as on letters and so forth, as far as on where it was gonna go regarding, there was also issues, someone came driving in that way, disrupting the neighborhood regarding the lights, but but anyways, in order to do that back there, a permit had to be filed for that access on the road, because you were asking for an alternate access. And asking for
board that would do that.
an alternate access requires approval on a property.
Right.
So that work was done, that access was created without getting, in my opinion, proper approvals from the town.
Can I just make a comment
Sure.
real quick? I can't comment on any conversations Mr. O'Neill had with Mr. Me. I've had a few conversations with the building commissioner, and from the discussions we had, the building commissioner categorized the driveway as additional access and not alternate access.
Correct.
He didn't believe it needed a special permit, and that because they had legal frontage on both roads, they did not need a special permit and could do that by right. They may have needed a permit from the DPW to do a curb cut, but they didn't need a special permit to create the driveway.
If I could just add, my landscaper did meet with someone from the highway department that came to the property, and all he had said is, I have to put the cobblestone, what do you call it?
Apron.
The apron there, and we did. So he did meet with someone from the highway.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could, a question again, going to say focused on the shed, instead of everything else, that's what we're here for tonight. As I understand it, because this is technically bigger than 100 square feet, our requirements are a 20-foot setback. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there is no place on this lot where it can make and be approved without still requiring a variance. Because you can't get,
On a 20-foot setback, correct.
right, you can't do that. So if we're going to allow a shed anywhere on this lot, it's going to require a variance, is that correct?
Correct. Well, no, I mean, technically, I guess if it's 102.
It is.
I do, I think that we decide the fact that whether or not we're gonna treat it as a 98 square foot shed, and consider the hardship, whatever it might be, the fact that, misinformation from the contractor. Okay, but you're right.
So at this point, we have 102 square feet, based on measurements from, so my point is, I'm just clarifying before I make a statement here to the applicant. You're gonna need a variance no matter where you relocate that shed if you choose to do so.
That's correct.
I believe that to be the case. So the question, I guess, is, do you wanna risk asking us to give you a variance where the shed is now? Or do you wanna consider putting that shed someplace else where it's at least 5 feet away? Don't know if you wanna answer that now or request a continuance, because I'm not sure you can bring this back to us, isn't it, within a period of time? They can't bring the same request back within 2 years?
Right, you'd have to ask for continuance, that's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, for that shed, just because it's convenient for other site plans, and again, the original shed was abandoned, willful abandonment. It was removed, it wasn't replaced with a footprint, and there's other areas in the property, particularly on that opposite side, at the other side, closer to Zephyr Road, where that shed could sit 5 feet from the property line and not touch the septic system. So there are other areas on the site where that shed could be placed. When a structure, in my opinion, can be placed elsewhere in the lot and be conforming, I don't see where the board can approve a hardship or a variance when the structure can be placed elsewhere and be conforming. That's my issue.
I think the question, Ken had, is if it's deemed to be in excess of 100 square feet, then the offset needs to be 20 feet. And there's no place on this
Then,
lot.
in my
that
opinion,
will
they need a
comply.
smaller shed done.
That would
That's,
require
that's,
replacement.
that's how I look at it. We had an opportunity to put a shed in that property elsewhere, in a larger shed, and be conforming. And I personally, do not feel we should approve a shed, a structure that has the opportunity to be conforming on the lot in a different location.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a
Yes.
couple quick comments. I think one thing is important to know, my clients didn't select this location out of thin air. This is where the prior shed was.
I understand.
So it's not as if they,
I appreciate
they
that.
looked at the lot and said, let's put it here. This is where the prior one was. So that sort of makes the most logical sense in terms of if you're going to replace it. I am perhaps a straw poll, but if at 102 square feet, if we're at a location that's 5 feet off the setback, it sounds as if board members perhaps would be able to see fit to grant a variance for that. Is that what I'm perhaps hearing?
Oh, if at some point here, I would be happy to support you asking for a straw poll.
Okay.
No problem with that.
Okay.
And then you can make a decision as to how you want to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, my pleasure. Okay, I gotta just check where my place is here, folks. Hold on a second here, give me a moment. All right, so any other comments from the public? All right, I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to have a motion made to close the public,
So moved.
okay?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ken, second by Al. All those in favor of closing the discussion?
Aye.
Okay, approved. All right, this time, obviously, there's only 5 members here tonight, but, you know, to this point, we assign voting, and voting tonight will be Al Donahue, myself, Chris Murphy, John August, and Kenneth Dixon. Okay, the chair will now entertain discussion about the application from the board. Any further discussion?
Well, I think we have to decide if you're believing this to be less than 100 square foot, Brian. I think it takes 4 out of 5 votes to approve this variance request, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it's under 100 square feet. And so because of that reason, it cannot be placed anyplace else on this lot and still be conforming. We still would have to grant a variance. That's how
Or request the fact that they come up with a smaller shed. The
True.
shed is too big. I'm just trying to look at the code. We're gonna have other people, it doesn't matter what happens in the future, but the shed is larger than the 5-foot requirement. That's a problem.
That's true.
Any other discussion by the board?
No.
No.
All right, so before considering, you asked if you wanted to have a straw poll done.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so we can decide.
Why don't you indicate, as far as what you are looking for the vote to be on?
Well, I guess the first would be the variance request in front of you, and then the second would be if we didn't move it to 5 feet, for example, would that be something, even though I guess technically it would still require a variance, but at the 5-foot setback, would that be something board members could support in the alternative?
Okay, which one do you want to have the straw poll on first?
What we came in for first, please.
Okay. So, the question is, the attorneys asked for a straw poll regarding those that would approve the shed in its current situation as presented on the site plan, and grant the variance for that 102 square foot shed. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I have 3. All those not in favor?
Aye.
Huh?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's 3-2, so that would not be approved. Now, the next question is whether or not the placement of that shed elsewhere in the lot to be 5 feet, that existing shed to be 5 feet from a lot line and relocated. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
What? Would you say yes?
Aye.
Aye. You a yes, John?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so that's a straw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on that, I would ask for if we could have a continuance.
Certainly.
And then we can do some measurements to see if there's another location that we can find on the property.
I appreciate that. The, let's see, I have a. Rachel, you wouldn't happen to have a continuous form with you?
I don't have it,
Okay,
but we can sign it.
Yeah, I can just email and I'll sign it.
okay, so we will, all right, so motion is to have a continuance. I'll make that motion. Can I have someone second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, John seconded. All those in favor of continuance?
Aye.
Aye.
Continuance is granted.
And that would be in your July meeting, is that correct?
July or when, I mean, right now we're gonna set it for July,
July 24th?
31st.
31st, okay.
31st.
Okay, great.
And should you desire more time, that's when we definitely need to have the continuance signed. Get that done anyways.
All right, great. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Taking notes, folks, here to get myself organized. Appreciate it. Oh, Rachel, Chris just mentioned he won't be here in the July meeting, just so you can note that, okay? Okay, I'd like to ask the clerk to next.
Okay, case number 2024-14, Bruno Visco, trustee for et al. Conroy Sandy Trust, through the attorney David Reed. The owner of the property is located at 34 Braddock Street, assessors map 14, parcel B18, RH1 zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit 32554 non-conforming structures. Uses 325 attachment 2, table 2 area regulations. Attachment 3 and table 3 height bulk regulations to construct 2 additions on the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaws 325 and MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6.
Okay. Regarding relevant notices or butters letters, Police Department comment was no concerns. The Board of Health indicated that the proposed additions and alterations do not increase the septic design requirements. However, a passing Title V report will be required prior to approval of a building permit based on the age of the system and the scope of the project. I'm assuming you folks are aware of that.
I wasn't aware that you received that, no.
Rachel, I think, let me pull up that. It was received prior to this meeting, but hold on a second. Or do I have it, did I get that incorrect, Rachel?
No, yeah, I forget the exact date she submitted it.
June 11th. It came to the,
And that was that a Title V inspection be done prior to the issuance of the building permit?
correct.
Okay.
I don't need it. Here, you can have a copy of the, if you like, of the memo from the Board of Health.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. Well, so we've all taken our seats. If I could have representative and the applicant introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Attorney David Reed. With me is Mr. Bruno Visco, who is one of the trustees of the 34 Braddock Lane Realty Trust that owns this property at 34 Braddock Street. Some of the plans show it as street, some as lane, but I think street is the technical correct name. As you've indicated in the summation, they're proposing some renovations to the existing home, and for that seek, first and foremost, a finding under Chapter 48, Section 6, what this board has come to refer to as the Gale findings, that what's proposed is not substantially more, would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And the alternative, we've asked for the special permit under the bylaw, which has essentially the same standard, but the finding itself is statutory and the special permit is bylaw oriented. The property is in the RH1 zone, contrary to the original application that mentioned it in the RM zone. Your assistant caught that very early. We were able to correct our plan and submit a corrected plan for you that showed the correct setbacks and requirements for the RH1 district. The property itself is 9,043 square feet in area. It has a one-story single-family home on it that has existed since approximately 1934. That's a
date we've gleaned from other records, we'd have no personal knowledge of that, but that's when we believe the original house was built. It is now a three-bedroom home. It has an existing three-bedroom septic system. The proposal is to keep it at 3 bedrooms, make essentially four modifications to the existing structure that we'd like to address with you individually. First, if you would look at the plans that were submitted, sheet A1, I'd like to reference to that, to several changes, if you have that one before you. That's the first floor plan of the proposed conditions.
Okay, got it.
Are we in
Thank you.
order on that? To the right side of the building, which is the north facade, you will see that there's an existing bump out which contains a bathroom for the master bedroom. The proposal is to construct next to that a second bathroom of essentially the same dimensions, the same setback to that northerly lot line, which is in excess of 30 feet already, so conforming to the setback on the right side, but additional space into the yard for a second bathroom for the other bedroom. The second addition or change is to the rear of the property, where you can see that there is an existing rinse station or outdoor shower stall, basically, that is being moved in kind from one position to a slightly different position to the right. That's because of some window changes that were proposed. There's going to be a double window in the kitchen there. It wasn't suitable to have that structure in front of the windows. We'd like to move that slightly to the right.
Excuse me for 1 second. I'm getting background noise, people talking in the hall. Kind of annoying for me. Just close the door.
I got it, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you. All right, ask them to quiet down.
Folks, then if you can't be talking, they're getting feedback inside. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for
No, it's perfectly all right, Mr. Chair.
hitting your
Thank you.
train of thought there. but-
That's all right. The next change, if you would look at the plans in the middle of the front of the house, there's currently what I would call an alcove indented into the house where there is no interior structure at this time. They propose to fill in a portion of that with what's labeled as a laundry and mudroom. There's a small square filling in an existing space within the, if you will, footprint of the house. It is not coming out all the way to the existing front. It's approximately 6 feet from the front edge of the house, therefore obviously not any closer to the front line of the property than the existing structure. The only other change, which is of any zoning concern, is the fact that the roof line, the roof pitch, is being changed in 2 areas. Again, referring to the upper half of that sheet A1. On the right side of the house, where the bathrooms are, the pitch of the roof is being raised slightly. I guess the pitch is actually being reduced, isn't it? The height of the plate is being raised slightly to add more headroom to the 2 bathrooms. And I need to point out to you at that point that there is actually a mistake on our plan. Again, in my sheet A1, in this upper right-hand corner, you see that bracket that's just outside the building that shows the first floor, subfloor, and then the top plate. There's actually a line missing there. What's labeled as existing at the top plate is incorrect. The existing plate is the roof line that's shown in shadow, and the top line that's shown as top plate is the proposed. Do you follow me on that? And similarly, on the front of the living room area, also labeled on the plan in the middle, the pitch of the roof is being changed to raise the headroom within the existing living room area that's being remodeled. The height of the building and the ridge will remain exactly the same. It's only the edge of the property, edge of the building, at those 2 locations where the ceiling height is being raised. The additions in total will increase the site coverage by 1.8%. It will increase the building coverage by 2.1%, but that is still conforming to the current bylaw. You may be aware, I think Mr. Donahue is, maybe, that this property was before you once before, back in 2018, at which time the owners proposed to put a second story on the main part of the house with additional bedrooms upstairs and quite a bit more extensive remodeling and renovation of the property. That was approved by the board, but appealed by a neighbor. The neighbor was able to convince the Superior Court judge that what was proposed would in fact be substantially more detrimental to his client, the neighbors to the front right side of the Court family, and therefore the judge annulled your previous decision. So we're back before you tonight with no proposal for a second story, no proposal for a substantial increase in the habitable area of the house, other than the addition of the bathroom. It is and will remain 3 bedrooms, as the septic system is presently suited. I will note one other item, which is not really a zoning issue, but was an issue before for the court. In the middle of the building, there is what's labeled existing den/study. That currently has a door entering it from the hallway, and while not currently used as a bedroom, had been in the past. We have decided to eliminate any possibility of that being considered a bedroom in the future by removing the doorway and putting a cased opening of 5 feet on the right-hand side. So it is now wide open. It is only 60 square feet. It can't qualify as a bedroom. It can't be used as a bedroom because of the case opening. So the house is and will remain a 3-bedroom home. This lot is actually a fair amount larger than the surrounding properties, both of which have 2-story, 3- and 4-bedroom homes. So in terms of the density of this property, it is not even as dense as our immediate abutters. It is as a single-family home, and a 1-story single-family home will remain actually one of the smaller homes in this neighborhood on a comparably decent-sized lot. I would respectfully suggest that the changes being proposed are very modest, will not have any adverse effect upon our neighbors, and certainly would not be, quote, substantially, close quote, more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's there now. We would ask that you make a finding to that effect, and therefore grant the permission to do what is asked of you tonight. In the alternative, and I don't think it's necessary for you to proceed to the second choice, but if you do feel it's necessary to address it as a special permit under section 325-54A, we would propose that again, as the bylaw requires, you find that what's proposed would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, but also find that the use will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that the site is appropriate for the structure in use. This has been a single-family home and site for approximately 90 years. It is consistent with the uses all the way around it in terms of the neighborhood. What proposed will not create any nuisance or serious hazard for vehicles or pedestrians, and there are adequate facilities to serve the site as proposed. As indicated, and I believe the health memo that you received confirms, it has currently a lawful 3-bedroom septic system on the site. We will be happy to have that inspected and confirm that it is currently functioning properly under Title V. It will remain a 3-bedroom home, single-family home, the same height, almost the same dimensions physically. The only major change in terms of the footprint is the extra bathroom, which in fact conforms to the setback requirements at that side of the house. With that, Mr. Chairman, we would be happy to respond to any questions you may have or the public, and would ask you to act favorably upon this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Attorney Reed. What's the, given if there's an approval tonight, what is your expected time frame for construction?
I don't know. When would you propose to commence construction?
Maybe in the fall, but it could go till next fall.
Okay, so it's all right.
Not tomorrow.
Now, when I was at the property, if I recall, there was a string or a line going down the driveway. Right. What was that about?
The part of the appeal,
Part of what?
Part of the appeal of the previous case involved a question of what rights we had in that driveway.
Okay,
The determination by the Superior Court was that we have a driveway access to our property from Braddock to the house on that 10-foot wide stretch between the two homes on either side of us. The judge also determined that we do not have a right to park on the right side of the driveway. The 5 feet on the right side is an area that it belongs to the McCourt family on the right, 36 Braddock. We have a right to drive over that. We do not, according to the judge, have the right to park there other than incidental stopping in the course of coming and going. We do have a right to park on the left side of the driveway, including the extension of that left driveway into the Justy property on the left side of an additional 3.4 feet, which is the hatched area that's shown on the plan. I believe the line that you saw is probably the demarcation of the middle of the driveway.
yeah, no, I wasn't quite sure if you're gonna put some lines down there that when I was there that day, but, okay. So, how much room now from that left-hand side facing the house do you have to park?
In the driveway,
Yeah. What's the width of that area that you're?
8.4 feet.
All right, okay. I'm asking that because of construction vehicles and so forth, and that's gonna be required to work in the site. Okay.
Mr. Visco will be doing the work himself.
Well, yeah, but there's a,
Yes.
I mean, it's gonna take equipment.
Oh, I know, but I mean in terms of controlling how it is done.
Right, yeah, it's, you know, there's gonna be trucks involved and so forth. Has there been any, and I apologize if I didn't see it in the plan, regarding water retention? You change the roof lines and so forth, I mean, based upon, rain, water retention, are you gonna be able to maintain that on the site, or are you gonna be able to avoid runoff
Would be gutters.
to the site?
We can do drive wells.
Okay, are they
Are the
currently
gutters
planned?
There are gutters now.
There's gutters now?
Yep, those can be diverted into dry wells.
Okay. Do you feel that dry wells be needed in order to keep runoff from going to your neighbors' yards?
You know what, I don't know the topography of the land, it's pretty flat,
Yeah,
and, but I can't see, there's a lot of percolation there. I don't think it's a problem now. I don't know why it would be a problem later. We're not adding,
so there's no visible runoff situation now going to those
Correct.
properties? Okay. Should the building inspector require it, will you be putting in? would
Sure,
you
of
put-
course.
All right. And is there any, given the enclosure on the deck, is there gonna be any further restriction? Because you've got 2 parking spaces that are, on the side there, area. Is that room that's there now gonna, is that being impeded any further?
No.
That will remain exactly the same.
All right. Okay. Those are my immediate questions. John?
Can I just clarify which table is the correct purposes of compliance?
The
Is it the
RH1?
large format?
The RH1 on the large format plan.
Okay. So it's a slight increase in coverage, but still compliant on building coverage. If I'm reading that one correctly.
Correct. 1.8% for site coverage and 2.1% for building coverage.
Yep.
But the building coverage still conforms.
Still conforms. That's my only question.
Wait a minute, I apologize, I'm reading the right one. It says building coverage requires 20%, existing is 25.
That's what I'm saying, it's the wrong table on that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you need the large format
Oh, yeah, okay,
drawing.
thank you.
Has the
You're right.
right table on it.
Apologize.
Do you have the one that
Yeah,
indicates?
I've got it.
large
This
one?
is-
Okay.
I have no questions.
Okay. Brevity is a plus?
I have no questions. I have no questions either.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this application?
Yeah, I would.
Oh, yes, sir.
opposition.
That's fine. You take the position over there. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's George McLaughlin. I'm an attorney with the McLaughlin Brothers, and I represent Mr. McCourt in the purple shirt there, who is the direct abutter. Back in 2018, when the original application was sought for a special permit, I opposed it, the board granted it, and I took an appeal to the Superior Court. And after a 2-day trial, the judge vacated this board's special permit. That's a very difficult standard, as you know, to prove. That doesn't happen but once in a blue moon. And really what was at the heart of the judge's decision, which I have a copy of for you folks, is the parking, okay? So Mr. Regis made a statement. We can park on the left side of the road, on the left side of that way. They can't park on the left side of the way. The judge's decision says they can't park in the road, and as a matter of fact, there's a bylaw in town, which you folks are probably familiar with, that says you cannot park in a road or way. And I suggest to you that the reason why they are showing the 2 parking spaces up against the fence is because they know they can't park in the way. Now, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I just want to pass to the board the prior decision back in 2018. And what the board said in that decision, it said as a condition, and I quote, 1, if at any time parking is prohibited from the right-of-way associated with this property, 2 parking spaces must be created elsewhere on the property. The board made that a condition because back in 2018, over my objection, Mr. Reed told the board, we have the right to park in that right-of-way. I said, you don't have the right. We took an appeal, we went to court, and the court decided they did not have the right. In addition, what the court decided is that they had illegally converted a garage into a bunk room. And I have heard today several times that this is a 3-bedroom house. It's actually a 4-bedroom house. So it's illegal as it stands today. And it's a 4-bedroom house. And so what they did is, illegally and without permits, they took their garage, they converted it into a bunk room, which is another bedroom. And then they come to you and say, geez, we don't have any parking spaces. Let us jam these parking spaces up here against the fence. Well, I mean, the parking spaces are in violation of the town's bylaw also, but I want to pass to the board a copy of Judge Pasquale's. It was a 2-day trial, a lot of witnesses, a lot of evidence. He wrote a 13-page decision. And I want to quote you different parts of that decision. But I'll walk you through the decision. If you turn with me to page 3 of the judge's decision, he writes in the second paragraph, 3rd line, as previously constructed, the Visco property contained 3 bedrooms and an attached garage. Over time, the Visco trustees converted the garage into an area that they described as a bunk room, which was not permitted by the town. So these folks are here before you tonight, asking you to give them special relief when they had the audacity to illegally convert their garage to a bunk room, thus creating a 4th bedroom when they only have a 3-bedroom septic system. So we have folks here who illegally converted a garage to a bunk room. And then, as we sit here today, illegally have a 4-bedroom house on a 3-bedroom septic system. And as I say, they have the audacity to come here and say to you folks, oh, give us some relief so we can put on another bathroom, and we can cover this, and we can move that, and they don't have any legal parking. If you'll turn with me to page 5 on the judge's decision. It's the judge's decision, Mr. Chairman, not the board's decision. Page 5. The judge finds, and this is the law of the case, so this is the law that is before. The judge, this is a final legal determination. The Viscos have no right in their record title to park cars along the way. The Visco trustees have presented evidence showing that at times they have parked on the way. However, no such parking has occurred in spring, winter, or fall months of any year, and such parking in summer months has been sporadic. What they tried to say to the judge is two things. They try to say, Judge, we have a legal right under our record title to park in the way. We proved that was false. And then, as a fallback position, they had witnesses and they tried to say, geez, Judge, for 20 years or more, we have openly, continuously, exclusively, adversely, and notoriously parked in that right-of-way, and therefore, by adverse possession, which is known as a prescriptive easement, we have acquired the right to park in that right-of-way. The judge says, no, you don't. Get the cars off the right-of-way. They continue to park there. We've talked to them about it. I've talked to Mr. Reed. I'm going to end up in court just having the judge issue an order kicking them off the right-of-way. Now, what they're going to say is, they're going to say, oh, well, if you picture this, and Mr. Chairman, you were down at the property, you looked at that line that was put in. The McCourt property, as you're facing the Visco property, and your back is to Braddock Street. The McCourt property is to the right. The Visco property is down the end of this 10-foot way, and the Giusti property is to the left. Prior to the trial, they obtained an easement from the Giustis to park on their 5-foot side of the way. But then we had the trial, and the judge said, nobody's got any right to park in the way. The judge further says that it's in violation of the town's bylaw to park on the way. As you folks may know, there's a zoning bylaw in town that, I guess I'm sorry, I only have one copy of this, Mr. Chairman, but I can recite it to you. The off-street parking and loading requirements in Harwich are covered by section 325-39. At the beginning, it says, single-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, you have to have 2 parking spaces. So they have no right to park on the right-of-way. They have illegally converted their garage, where they could have parked 2 cars, to another illegal bedroom, a 4th illegal bedroom in violation of their septic system. And now they say, on the plan, if we need to, we can park here. We'll drive up here, and we'll park a couple of cars tandem. Well, I mean, that's the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, number one, it's in violation of the town's dimensional requirements for parking and what have you. And if you look at this plan.
Excuse me, explain to me why it's in violation of dimensional.
Sure,
I'm aware of the fact that that 2 parking spaces are required.
Yeah.
To be able to park a car. I'm not aware of a dimensional requirement, which generally has been used for commercial projects on parking lots, but I'm not aware of it on a residential. What the
Yeah,
dimension?
it's here in section 325, section 42.
Sir, before you proceed, could you uncover the microphone and speak from the podium? This is a recording.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because the public
I'm-
has the
I'm
right
sorry,
to listen
sorry
to our
about-
meeting. Speak from the podium, please.
Sure. Well, it says on page 2 of the regulation I just handed to you, or I'm sorry, not on page 2, this is 325-39A, and it's on page, it's actually 325-42, design requirements. And it says, in I, and I quote, "No parking spaces shall be established in the right-of-way of any road or way, comma, except that the town of Harwich may establish on-street parking spaces in accordance with the applicable provisions of state law," close quote. So that's the part that says you can't park in the way. And then if you look at K, it says, "Parking areas for passenger vehicles shall typically be laid out to meet the following design criteria." And on the next page, it says 45 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. They have to be 9 feet in wide. They have to be varying degrees. What this shows is it shows that you can't have them parked in tandem, because if they could be parked in tandem, it would have been 0 degrees. And so that's where it shows you it's in violation of the town's bylaws. There are also certain turning radiuses. And if you look at the plan, if I could ask the members of the board to look at the plan, the site plan that was submitted. It's a 10-foot right-of-way, and Mr. Chairman, you've been out there, and I don't know if any of the other board members have been out there.
We've all been out there.
You've all been out there, okay. So if you look at the end of the right-of-way, it says there's 7.9 feet between the end of the right-of-way and the stairs going into the house. So it's going to be physically impossible. I mean, Mr. Visco has a truck, there's several people who have trucks, big SUVs and what have you, a Bronco SUV. You couldn't physically make that turn and get up the side of the house to where they allege they could put these 2 illegal parking spaces. Plus, I mean, talk about substantially more detrimental to the McCourts. The McCourts are right there. They're enjoying their backyard. And I don't even know how these people could get out of the cars. Are they going to go out through the sunroof? Are they going to, the fence is on one side and the house is on the other. And the only reason they are putting those spaces in there is because they're admitting that they have no right to park in the right-of-way. So, they have no parking. They've done it to themselves, as I say, illegally converted their garage to an illegal bedroom. If you'll turn on page 8 of the judge's decision with me. At the top, the court concludes that the alteration or extension will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing nonconformity, and thus the board had exceeded its authority by granting the special permit. He goes on to write, the Visco trustees' allowable existing use on the Visco property is already detrimental towards the town's policy to protect against overcrowding. It allows a 3-bedroom house to be crowded into a land area just over 1/4 of the required minimum lot area with no frontage on a public street. They have no frontage on a public street, in violation of the front yard setback with an existing house extremely, I'm sorry, is someone talking? I'm having, with an existing house extremely close to the McCourt's house. So what the judge said is, before they do anything to that house, it's already detrimental to the neighborhood. On page 9, if you turn to page 9, the judge writes, "The existing conditions of the Visco house include 4 bedrooms, not 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, as defined under the town's bylaws, Board of Health regulations, and by the common understanding of the word. There are 3 existing bedrooms, and the existing bunk room is likewise a bedroom, as it is intended to be used for sleeping purposes and designed to furnish the minimum isolation and privacy necessary for use as a sleeping area, period, close quote." So there the judge says they got an illegal 4-bedroom house there right now, not a 3-bedroom. On page 11, if you turn with me to page 11 and footnote 6.
Okay.
The judge writes at the bottom on footnote 6, quote, "By virtue of the Visco trustees converting their garage to a bedroom, the Visco trustees were left with nowhere to legally park on their property. Indeed, if the Visco trustees had completely blocked access along the way, they would have landlocked their property, altering it from a lot without frontage but with access to a lot lacking access for its vehicles or emergency vehicles, a change that would unquestionably render the non-conforming Visco property even more detrimental to the neighborhood." So what the judge is saying there is, he's saying the place as it stands is substantially detrimental. They have an illegal 4th bedroom in violation of their septic system. They are illegally parking on a way. They are blocking emergency vehicles from going in there. And as I say, they have the audacity to come in and act like everything's wonderful, and let's just add more to the already substantially detrimental illegal situation. It's just absurd. And I ask this board to deny this application. I think that's all I have. If I could have just a moment.
Certainly, take your time.
I just draw the board's attention to the last page, to page 12 of the judge's decision, where he writes, "Therefore, the defendants have not acquired an easement by prescription to park vehicles on the way." That's the judge saying no adverse possession. And then he writes, "As such, the Visco trustees are entitled to drive cars across the way consistent with the easement." So they can drive them across the way, but they can't park there. And then at the bottom of the page, again, he writes, "The defendants do not have the right to park vehicles or other personal property within a way which connects their house to Braddock Street." If I could just have a moment. Sure. Mr. Chairman. All right, I don't have anything else, and I thank you for your time and patience.
Well, let me ask you a question, if I might. I believe that K, regarding parking, and we'll get into the swing into the designated 2 parking spaces, at least I will in a moment. But on 32542K, I firmly believe that that, those numbers, those designations for space length and so forth, has to do with, a public parking area for business and so forth. Now, one reason I say that is that typically, this board, and I believe the planning board and the building inspector, regarding meeting requirement for 2 parking spaces, have allowed 2 parking spaces in a driveway, length to length, to meet the required code, the zoning bylaw. So if someone has a driveway and it's long enough to fit 2 cars, they've met the requirement for 2 parking spaces. All right, so what, I just want to be, other than access, that you're talking about getting around the deck, what is the difference between that and what the applicant has shown here for their parking in the front of the house?
Well, first of all, it's an illegal use, okay? No doubt it's an illegal use. All you have to do is read the judge's decision. They have an illegal 4-bedroom there.
Okay, that judges, I mean, first of all, more than likely, I'm going to be recommending to the board a continuance so they can consult with our town attorney on a few of these points, okay?
Yeah, and
That's up to the board to agree with me on that. But regarding the parking, at some point, this house showed up.
right, and it had a garage.
Okay, regardless of the garage, the house is there. Before you sit down, I might ask the applicant, can you go over the adjustments on the footprint that you're making, for this appeal, for this application tonight? How is the footprint changing?
Okay, the footprint is changing in really only 2 respects. Again, referring to sheet A1, which is the proposed front elevation and first floor plan.
Wait a minute. Are you on this one?
Yeah, no. The building plans?
Okay, I was looking at, can I look at the site plan so I can see the lot lines and where the building's sitting?
Yep.
Okay. I see that the deck is a change.
No?
It's not.
No?
Okay. Just want to double check.
I had
Just want to go over what's happening to the footprint of an existing non-conforming house.
yeah, I had a nice little
Because
printout here.
that's, for me, that's key in how the change in the footprint is a detriment to the neighborhood.
It looks to me like it's just a bump out for the additional bathroom and filling in that sort of causeway area that existed as a porch to now be part of the structure, but it's not extending beyond what was the front of the house,
Okay,
if I'm
all
looking
right.
at it correctly.
And the shifting of the,
Like for
Shower
like,
stall.
like for like,
All
though.
right, I'm not totally following that, John. You got a handle on this.
So you get-
Let me just see.
Where they bump the bathroom out,
Oh, yeah, right here. So this little 6x3 and 9x5,
that's an addition.
that's an addition.
And this, the entranceway used to go all the way in, and they're filling it in.
And we're now taking, so the actual area, if we draw the line in the front of the house, the footprint really isn't changing.
Correct. Yeah, from my understanding. And then
Okay.
they're moving like for like this to here.
Okay.
It's the same size.
Mr. Chairman, may I offer you just a copy of the site plan with just 3 areas highlighted in yellow?
Okay.
Which I believe is what you're asking about, for the 3 areas that are being
Have
changed.
you all seen this? Just want to just.
No,
I did
I
not
haven't seen
submit
that. Yeah, that's in here, yeah.
I got
Okay, all right, guys, because that's, what's key to me tonight, in a way, is, and I asked earlier about the parking here. I am not sure, now, the house exists. At some point, someone gave them a right-of-way, and they built the house. They just didn't show up and put up a house and do a squatter situation and then try to kick me out.
Right.
They've been there for, how long has this house existed there?
Approximately 90 years. 1934, we believe, is the date of the house.
So how has the footprint changed since 1934?
Well, I don't know exactly, because we'd known it then.
Okay, and how long has this footprint been the way it is now?
During our ownership, the footprint, I don't believe, has changed.
And how long is that?
24 years?
Okay, so for 24 years, we've been having this current footprint.
Including the bunk area replacing the garage?
And a permit was pulled for that.
Well,
This guy's a liar.
It's okay, let's not,
well, first of all,
Not gonna do that.
I resent that. I know
Oh,
we're not
I
gonna do it.
appreciate, no, no, I totally agree with you that you should resent that, so let's not,
The judge found it was illegal. It's a decision.
let's not
I
respect.
have permits. I have the permits from the town of Harwich to convert that garage to a recreational room.
Not what the judge found.
To a recreational room, Joe. You know that's true.
Speaking of time, sir.
I can bring the permit up here tomorrow.
That's fine, I understand that, I appreciate that. All right, so, my main thing here is that looking at these small, in my opinion, this is, the areas that they're asking for to be added onto this house, how that is a detriment to the neighborhood. And I don't, personally, I'm not quite sure.
Is that to me?
And I'll ask you, why does this small 6x3, 9x5 at one end of the house constitute a detriment over what's existing now?
Well, because what they're asking to do is they're asking this board, everybody here volunteers their time. You're
Sure,
trying to do the
absolutely.
best you can and make fair decisions, okay? You got a tough job. But they're asking you to give them relief when they already have illegally converted the garage, when they don't have any right to park in the way, when they, and I hear what you're saying about the parking, and I understand, sometimes the written word isn't the way things get interpreted in a town, and so, but the way that zoning bylaw is written is, it doesn't say it's limited to commercial settings. It says, these are the parking regulations.
I understand, but the way the town parking requirements have been for 95% of this town,
Yep.
is that 2 parking spaces in a driveway meet the requirements of the code.
And I also think if I can say, 325-42A is probably what governs in this case, is that except that single-family residences or single-family residences with accessory apartments which front on other than a state-maintained or designated roadway may provide for the backing out of vehicles, which sort of overrides the turning
Okay,
requirements
so,
and everything.
that's right, thank you.
All right, but, so it's substantially detrimental, because look at these parking spaces. That's the only place that they can park on this property. So what
Is
this,
that new? Excuse me, is that new?
yes, that's what,
New from when?
no, wait a second. These parking spaces they're proposing, they don't use those now.
When,
Well, where do they park?
They're illegally parking in the driveway, and I'm going to drag them back into court and get an order from the judge to find them in contempt. I mean, I've tried to be working it out with Mr. Visco, but it's,
Could you just move on with this without telling me what you're gonna do?
just make your points about this thing, not what you're gonna do in the future.
well,
We don't need,
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Where do they park now?
They illegally park in the driveway in violation of the court's order and in violation of the town's bylaw. And so what they do is they call this available parking. Well, if that available parking isn't substantially detrimental to my clients, the McCourts, I don't know what is. First of all, I don't know how you physically get a car up there, and they're gonna be banging into the fence and climbing out of their, climbing out of their moon roof and climbing out the windows, and, it's just absurd for this board, I urge you to find, to allow them to park cars there. It's like rewarding them for going in and illegally converting the garage and parking in the way. I mean, you just can't do it.
no, I appreciate your comment.
All right.
Do you have anything else to add to this?
No.
Mr. Chairman, might I respond whenever you're ready?
Yes, please.
The decision that's been presented to you related only to the McCourt's property, not to the Justy property. And when I said we have a right to park on the left-hand side of the parking lot and in that hatched area, that is the Justy's property, not the McCourt's. We have a agreement for judgment with the Justies that is recorded in the registry of deeds that says we have a right to park on the left-hand side of this parking lot and in that hatched area. That's not in violation of the judgment. That is entirely separate from the judgment of the court. The case involving the trustees was simply dismissed, was resolved by agreement for judgment. As far as the parking requirements, if you go back a little bit to the beginning, under this section entitled applicability, 325-38, it says that pre-existing non-conforming structures and uses are not subject to the new parking and loading requirements unless they are enlarged or altered so as to increase parking demand. Nothing we're proposing increases the parking demand for this property. A single-family home requires 2 parking spaces, whether it's 3 bedrooms or 10 bedrooms, whether it has 2 bathrooms or 4. Nothing we're proposing increases the demand for parking under the bylaw. So there's nothing that triggers the applicability of current parking standards to this home. It is grandfathered as to parking, just like it's grandfathered as to other nonconformities in the property.
May I respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
If I could just finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
first,
Not at this moment. Thank you.
I'd like to know where on this plan Mr. McLaughlin finds 4 bedrooms. The health department doesn't seem to. They seem satisfied that the septic system is adequate for what's proposed, as long as it passes an inspection for its function. I see 3 bedrooms in this property, not 4. Regardless of what Mr. McLaughlin may have argued about the previous plan, which was a 2-story structure with additional rooms that don't currently exist, and what the judge may have found based upon that plan, it has nothing to do with what's before you tonight. What's shown in the plan before you is a 3-bedroom home existing and a 3-bedroom home proposed. There is no 4th bedroom there. And to argue otherwise, grasping at unrelated and irrelevant portions of a previous judgment on a previous plan, on a previous proposal for this house that is not before you. We're not asking for that anymore. I think that's about it for the moment. I just find the diversion to be a focus away from what's actually before you to be frustrating. The reason why our plan shows those 2 parking spaces, which are not ideal, but the reason they are there is because in the previous decision, the chairman, who you bid farewell tonight, said in the very closing moments of that hearing, it turns out that you can't park in the driveway, you need to show that you've got room for 2 other places. That's the only reason those 2 spaces are shown on the plan, because that's what you required before, and we showed them. And they are legal, they are not practical, they're not desirable, but they're there, and if we have to use them, we will use them.
Thank you.
Just add 2 quick notes. I have photos on my phone, and our attorney has photos of cars parked there. Plenty of room to get out of the cars. You don't have to go through moonroofs or whatever. Secondly, if we were to put that house on the market today, as is, we could only legally sell it as a 3-bedroom. If a real estate agent listed that as a 4-bedroom, they would be misrepresenting that house. It is not a 4-bedroom house. It never was when we purchased it. It was actually a 2-bedroom house, because that small room is not even close to being a legal bedroom. And that's it. I thank you for your time, and sorry about all the,
No, this is just going through the motions. This is how things are done. So I'm happy to hear everyone's opinion.
May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Number 1, the judge's decision doesn't say you can park on the Justice side, but you can't park on the McCourt side, okay? Just a bunch of nonsense. They can't park there. The town bylaw says they can't park there, so they can't park there. Now, they want to talk about 4 bedrooms. Again, the judge found in his decision, 1, he found that there's 2 bedrooms, he found that the den was a bedroom, and he found that the bunk room was a
Let me
bedroom.
interrupt you in that case here. Regarding the plans in front of us today, in order to meet for approval, they've taken that den, are removing the wall, a portion of the wall, and making a 5-foot open casement area, which then, given the size of the bedroom and the fact that it's a 5-foot area, takes it from qualifying as a bedroom to a non-bedroom. So they've, in the plans, regardless of what happened previously, the current plans in front of us today are showing a 3-bedroom house and they're making the alterations to the den to meet the requirements of the health inspector.
I understand that, but
So it's now, on the plans in front of us today, it's a 3-bedroom proposal.
it's a 3-bedroom proposal, but it's a 4-bedroom house. As the house sits here today, it's a 4-bedroom house.
When they, in my opinion, in order to get a building permit, in order to get occupancy permit, when this thing gets squared away to do this work, they have to do that conversion of the den.
I agree with you, but just so we're both on the same page, Mr. Chairman, as the house sits today, it's an illegal 4-bedroom. It couldn't be clearer.
Well, actually, you may be correct. In the requirement, if we do an approval tonight, and I have no idea how the board's going to vote, but in my opinion, if they follow the site plans, which they have to do as presented, they are converting that room and renovating that wall with a 5-foot opening.
All right,
And that's, I think that's enough said on that point
all
there.
right, fine. Fine, and,
Do you have another point to make, other than your discussion about a 4?
yeah, he said it's a legal pre-existing non-conforming use. It's not a legal pre-existing non-conforming use. It's an illegal pre-existing non-conforming use because they illegally converted the garage to a bedroom. And the judge has found that, so this board can't find otherwise.
The board can find, in my opinion, that on the current site plan presented, if they follow that site plan as it is now, you know, we can consider approval because it's showing a 3-bedroom house. That's,
Right, well, I think your idea, if I could just give you a suggestion, of referring it to town council is a good one, because I think that's gonna save the town a lot of money and aggravation in the meantime. I mean, I'll sit down, you've been very patient with me, but when you got people illegally converting bedrooms and jamming cars in and illegally parking in ways, I don't know why this board would ever exercise its discretion and help them out.
sure. No, I appreciate your comments, but
All right.
the applicant has indicated that he does have a permit for that work. And
Well,
at this point-
Judge,
At this point, I have to trust upon that, and I'm not going, it's not without considering what the judge said in the past. I'm looking at today's application.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order, and I'll stop it at this.
My pleasure.
Doesn't matter what he says, it doesn't matter what the building records say. We had a trial in the Superior Court. We have a judge's decision. That's the law of this case. This board can't do anything in violation of that order. So what you have before you today, and I just want to be crystal clear, is we got illegal 4-bedroom, and we got illegal parking, okay? Crystal clear. You can't do anything about that.
I appreciate that.
All right.
In my opinion, we're not violating the judge's order because that was on an application for an entirely different structure. This is a new application with a new site plan and a new design of how the interior of the house is being done. I feel it was a whole different set of criteria here. And
But even in accepting that, this plan would cure that issue,
yes,
so
so,
I'm not sure that that's a bad thing.
Well, it wouldn't clear the parking issue. Thank you.
Mike, no, thank you. I appreciate you raising the points. You educated us all. Is there anyone else in the public that'd like to speak regarding this application? Okay. Before I close open discussion, anything further that the applicant wants to say?
No, thank you very much.
All right. Apologize for a moment. I have been piling up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to ask one more question.
Oh, sure, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I did the math, or tried to do the math. It looks like your total, I'll call it addition to the building space, is about 121 square feet. Is that about what it is? Because the bathroom looks like it's 9 by 6 and by 6 by 4, and it's hard to do the new laundry room because there's a little cutout there, but I'm assuming it's 120 square feet approximately.
Yeah, more or less.
Your request today is the one that will approve you to build 120 square foot, to modify this by 120 square feet. Is that correct?
Right.
I want to make sure I'm clear. Thank you.
Okay, what did I do with it? There we go. Okay, so I've asked any additional questions from the applicant. I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Again, as a matter of format here, 5 voting members in the case would be Al Donahue, myself, Chris Murphy, John August, and Ken Dixon. Okay, now I'd like to entertain additional discussion by members of the board.
No questions? It seems pretty straightforward. I mean, the judge ruled on a case that was adding a second floor, adding extra bedrooms. I can see how that would have significantly impacted the neighborhood
Correct.
in a very tightly congested area. Here we're going down, and the additions are not adding any more nonconformities. There's not, and it's just right along the line, filling in some spaces. It doesn't seem like much of a problem.
John?
I would agree.
I would agree.
Okay. The, I don't believe, and I know I mentioned when we started getting the discussion, that would there be a necessity of seeking opinion of town council on this. But the issue, as I'm thinking of over here, seems to be based upon the parking's already established on the two-car park in the front. Whether or not there's parking allowed on that way, I don't think that is an item we need to consider tonight for this permit
I agree.
request.
I agree.
If it was, I would believe the fact that I would request town council to get involved, because I'm not sure.
I agree.
All right, so I don't think there's a need, at least from my opinion, to seek town council as, because we're now looking at a small, relatively minor square footage on the exterior being changed, and and this really is just very minor adjustment in the nonconformity of the footprint. So, in my opinion, I think we can go forward, I believe, without a continuance in requesting additional help from the town council.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, all right. Okay, now. I'll entertain a motion to close discussion,
So moved.
Second by Al.
Yes.
All vote to close discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
I just gotta look over,
Seems to be the normal, given the very tight area there, the normal time period and vehicles on the property.
yeah, so, I would say the fact that Chris, you're right, would recommend that usual time frame, no construction between June 30th and Labor Day, exterior construction is required.
Although things should.
If one, the question here is all, and we need to, if the thing, if life of the approved project, all construction vehicles will be parked on the applicant's property, not any public street or road. Okay? And the final use one. Al, do you want to make the motion, or would you like me to make it?
No, I'll make the motion. Case number 2024-14, Bruno Visco, trustees et al., Conway Sandy Trust. The attorney, David Reed, have been granted a special permit. The owners of the property located 34 Braddock Street, Assessors Map 14, parcel V18, in the RH1 zoning district. The applicant has been granted a special permit. 32554, non-conforming structures and uses of 325, attachment 2, table 2 regulation, and 325, attachment 3, table 3, height and bulk regulation, to construct 2 additions on a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaws 325, Mass General Law, chapters 48, section 7.
Section 6.
Excuse me, section 6. Granting is consistent with the Gale and Diedrich related cases as they may be intensification of one or more existing nonconformity, no new nonconformity, nor substantial detriment to the neighborhood or pre-existing nonconforming lot, as the proposed structure will not create any additional negative impacts on respect to traffic, noise, odors, and congestion. Any relief not expressly granted hereunder is hereby denied. All work shall be performed in accordance with the plan submitted with the applicant. Said grant and approval be subject to the following conditions. During the life of the project, there will be no demolition, exterior construction, or new landscaping between June 30 and Labor Day of any year. That is, for the life of the project, all construction vehicles will be parked on the applicant's property and not on a public street or road. Any violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of Howard zoning bylaw pursuant to MGL Chapter 48, Section 7, and the Howard zoning bylaws as they may be amended from time to time.
Any, before we have any further discussion on this motion? Any revisions?
No.
Can I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those voting in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
My pleasure. Folks, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we passed that window. Yeah. Are you going to the waitress? As you guys are going to?
We're going to,
That's in like August 21st. The reason I'm saying is, it's like a 3-week period, but friends of ours suggested, I guess something the newcomers is doing?
yeah, well, the play Ian and I are going to see is Farm Road.
Ah, okay.
And that's on for like 4 or 5 days. It's supposed to be, a friend of mine had just seen it last night, raved about it.
Yeah, this one, the waitress is actually got cerebral.
I think the waitress though is the next one.
Yes, it's August,
Yeah,
yeah.
August.
So they had asked, said, "Hey, you wanna go?" Yeah, so when you mentioned it, I never would've considered it, but now it sounds like I'm going.
Good, good. It's very, very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like I say, the one we had originally seen was Tick Tick Boom, which was play we went on Broadway.
Yeah,
Fellow who wrote that died to that Broadway. What it did was the play, which was a three-person play, music and all, didn't really explain how it got to Broadway. Because everybody who's there is a Broadway person.
Did you see Quartet? Have you seen Quartet, that what you're talking about?
Going tomorrow night.
Going tomorrow night? Wow. It's the best show we've seen on the Cape.
Yeah, I understand it was well received, because they had another friend who went there last night.
That's when I was there.
Oh, okay. That was it the first or second night?
I don't even know.
It was really good, huh?
Wow. They said it was great.
Absolutely wow. It gave you, it's music, it's comedy, but it's a history lesson of those four guys and how it's just fascinating.
I understand Jerry Lee Lewis on the piano was incredible.
He stole the show. Johnny Cash was good, but Jerry Lee stole the show, because he's got the comedy, he's got the acting, but his acrobatic talent, I'll leave it at that, you'll see it yourself, Al. Wow. I don't know if they're getting a fist fight with anybody. Unbelievable. Now. Check the website.
I don't know, and I don't want to.
The word of mouth is great, though. You can't do that.
Yeah, right, that's right.
It was fun.
You want to have it in your meeting?
Crazy like chicken with that cut off.
No, I understand. I do. I do believe that they talked to him on foot. Right, so in that sense, I think a hardship's been creating for a lousy couple of feet. I'm not disturbed. But I wanted to pour it down. Just said, I'm just doing it, and trust me. I've used that same thing. Guess what? And I said, right away, they said, we need a permit. They want
As presented, and if you read the case, I'm not sure you were here, but it has to do with the homes that's right on the corner of it, from, what was the house we just looked at last month? The one that was right on, overlooking the water.
Oh, 10 away, yeah.
10, the one on the corner, if you remember.
That was one of the first things.
That had to be, the property was located on town property.
Yeah, it's foundation. Oh, that's 12. Oh, I gotta tell you, I give you an update on that.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, I'll give you an update on that tonight.
I see him all the time.
Oh, I told him to talk to you about his day.
Always been.
Well, that's the thing, it's like,
Yes.
Okay,
He's
all right,
a college.
okay, all right.
where's the surveyor?
Thank you, John. Ken, sorry.
Not my brother.
Oh, he's been sitting with that.
Yes and no. Again, I look at it, I think the hardship is the fact that he got screwed. I'm willing to say, you know what?
I'm hoping he's being honest, because, Green Harbor does this for everybody. And I went to see,
I'm gonna measure mine,
I went to see Jack, asked if I could put up a shed, he said, as long as it's less than 10 by 10, it's a 5-foot setback. Well, if I buy an 8 by, whatever this one, 8 by 12,
When they talked about the roof liner that went around, added the additional.
Yes, that's what happened. No, it was the, I thought it was the outer, trim.
probably 2-3 inches.
Yeah.
So.
That does not affect the interior of it.
No, it's not the interior, the
But it's the exterior, yeah, I imagine it's the exterior space.
Yeah, that's 102, that's what they said.
Oh, God.
Rachel, you awake?
The what?
Hanging on by a thread.
8 by 12. Oh, yeah. Because they know what our rules are, and they want to make sure they can put it on.
That's exactly right.
Are they ready?
They know it's less than that. Remove the tags from these. That's how new they are.
Rachel?
Oh, yeah.
This is mine. I think this is mine. I'm taking up your space. What's next? Drifting.
Hey, Matt? When we're in recess, are the mics turned off?
Doug's our alpha, you're on broadcasting.
Just wondering, okay, thanks. By the way, Rachel, I'll be in tomorrow to stamp whatever we have me to stamp. I'm not, but
Yeah, that's fine.
This happens sometimes. When I presented it, I'm like, perhaps Attorney Kroll is going to give us some history on this building.
Him.
Well, that's what,
Won't take long.
okay. All right. I'd like to call us back into session. Al?
We ready? Case number 2024-16, 21 Woodland LLC, through the attorney William Kroll. The owner of the property located at 21 Woodland Road, Assessors Map 7, Parcel H9, in the RI zoning district, or RL, I should say. The applicant seeks a special permit or an alternative variance from 32554, non-conforming structures and uses, 325, attachment 2, table 2, area regulations, and 325, attachment 3, table 3, height and bulk regulations, to construct a pool and a second-story addition on a pre-existing single-family dwelling pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaws 325, 54, and 52, and Mass General Law 40A, Sections 10 and 6.
Okay. The Harwich Police Department had no concerns. The Board of Health indicated that a licensed installer must file for a disposal system construction permit prior to the signing of any building permit. Should the system on the north side of the property, System 1, fail, the plumbing should tie into the southern system, System 2. Bedrooms should not exceed 5. I'm assuming you folks have that information.
We do.
I'm not aware of any other comments from other town departments, nor abutters. So I'd like to ask the applicant or representative to introduce themselves and people assisting you on this case.
Thank you. Attorney William Kroll from Harwich Port, and the legal ads, both of them mention my law partner, Mike Donovan, so Attorney Donovan's here this evening. He's in favor of this petition. He's not in opposition to this petition. So much for telling my wife I might be home by 8 o'clock tonight. In any event, I
made
have...
similar comments.
It's just a shed. Sorry. This is Matt Ryder.
Let's cut to the chase. All those in favor of approving? No, I can't go ahead.
Oh, thank God.
This is Matt Ryder, an architect from Boston who submitted the plans. Owners, the members of the 21 Woodland LLC are John White and Peggy Gallup, husband and wife. They are from California, were unable to attend this evening. This property is located on Woodland Road, 21 Woodland Road, which is south of Route 28 off of Bank Street. You go down, take a left halfway to Bank Street Beach, and then this house is on the right. A little bit of history, this was Tip O'Neill's house. This is, I think, the third or fourth time I've been before the board for this property, and successfully each time, I might add. So we're keep tweaking this. They come back in for, let's do this, let's do that, to customize it to their needs. So in a nutshell, and I don't want to belabor any points, I know you had a long evening.
Take what you need.
But in a nutshell, we're simply asking for an addition on the second floor that will not change the footprint whatsoever. So we're creating habitable space within the 20-foot setback on one side of the dwelling, and we're asking to more centrally locate the pool, which is 16.3 feet from the westerly bound, and put it more centrally located, so it would go from 16.3 to 47.1 from the setback. So that's the, as I said, in a nutshell, the project this evening. I can walk you through some of the dimensional aspects of the house, but it's basically that on the easterly side is where the proposed second-story addition will be. We're not changing the footprint at all. We're going up. You see the calculations to the right-hand side on the plan, and the height will be just a little bit higher than it is presently. It'll be 21.8 on the plan. And it may be, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, 22 feet, 3/4 inches. It was, but now it's been recalculated to 21.8. Regardless, it's substantially less than the 30-foot height requirement. So we are pre-existing non-conforming on the easterly side at 9.8. That's not going to change. We're significantly back from the road, from Woodland Road, almost 80 feet, and the setback from the rear, 60.5 feet. Those are not changing. And then the westerly bound is not changing either. And that's currently at 15 feet and will remain that. So no change in building coverage whatsoever, and no change in setbacks. So on the easterly side, because we're creating habitable space, additional habitable space on the second floor within the present 20-foot setback requirement, then we need your special permit relief under the Gale, pursuant to the Gale case, and simply our bylaw allows for that, because we're not changing the footprint, but we're going up. So it's a special permit under the bylaw. So let me just address that special permit request. Since we're not changing the footprint, we can intensify an existing nonconformity pursuant to the Gale case, creating more vertical habitable space on the second floor. And we can do that with a special permit from this board if you make a finding that the additional second floor addition would not result in a substantial increase in noise, fumes, odors, congestion, or the like, would not create a nuisance, and it would not result in a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood. So we'd ask that you grant that special permit this evening for the second floor. With respect to the swimming pool, we're asking for permission. We're not asking for forgiveness. We haven't moved the pool yet, okay? So we have an existing pool that's in a state of disrepair. Compare it to the shed, right? And needs to be repaired under our bylaw. We can't even reconstruct that pool where it presently sits without a variance from this board. You can't demolish and replace in the same footprint without a variance. So, that being said, we're not asking for a variance, a setback variance at all, because we are presently 16.3, which is non-conforming, and we're going to 47.1 to make it conforming and centrally located in the lot. So the variance is from the fact that the site coverage is presently non-conforming.
Right.
At 46%, where 30% is the max. So we're already non-conforming. If the pool was part of the single-family residence, we could go Gale case and say, okay, we can intensify the nonconformity, but we're actually decreasing the nonconformity. We're going from 46% to 44.2%. So we're making the site coverage better, but because the site coverage is already nonconforming, the section of the bylaw that would apply here, because we are not considered a single-family residence, would require a variance.
Correct.
And it's a variance not from a dimension. It's not a dimensional variance, it's from the site coverage requirement. Now, I wanted to point out, because my partner has done considerable research in this regard, that there is case law and this 48 Section 6 that says that our bylaw cannot provide fewer protections to the pre-existing non-conforming structures such as the pool than what the statute allows, so that the argument can be made that we don't need a variance, we just need a special permit for that pool. What I'm thinking is that rather than request an opinion from town council on that as to whether you should ignore what our bylaw says, that hopefully you'd be inclined to grant a variance for the pool and bypass that issue. But the pool is very, very important to my clients. And it's in a state of disrepair. It needs work. They need a variance anyway to replace that pool. That being said, they want to more centrally locate it on the lot and make it parallel to the sidelines of the lot as opposed to perpendicular the way it currently is. So as far as a variance is concerned, our argument is that we have unique structures on the lot. The statute says unique shape, size, topography of the lot or the structures on the lot. We have a unique structure. We have a non-conforming pool, and that's unique to this lot and other lots similarly situated in the same zoning district. Given that, our argument is that if you granted a variance, that there would be no substantial detriment to the public good, and it would not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent or purpose of the bylaw, because we already have a pool. It's not like we're coming in and saying, we want a variance to have a new pool and we want to be too close to our lot line. That's not what we're asking. We already have a pool, and we want to reconstruct it. It's in disrepair. We want to make it conforming. We're going to reduce the site coverage and have a conforming setback when we're done. We would have a hardship under the statute, financial or otherwise, in that the pool is in a state of disrepair and we can't repair it without a variance from this board. That's a hardship. What are we supposed to do? Just let the pool disintegrate further and become basically unusable? So that's our argument as far as a variance for the pool, and we would ask that you grant that. Our first argument is we don't need a variance, special permit, we're not a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood, no nuisance, noise, fumes, odors, congestion, or the like. That being said, if you want to go variance, I've made the argument for the variance, and I'd ask that you grant one of those this evening. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. Obviously, before I forget, what would be the time frame of the project?
It would not begin this summer.
So,
They're looking to begin in September.
okay.
And they
And,
do have significant driveway area to park vehicles, construction vehicles on the property.
Right, so all of, they can all be maintained in the site.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, first of all, I'll preface my remarks saying the fact that I'm fine with the project, both special permits and variances. Our bylaws tend to be, I think, not precise regarding how to handle non-conforming accessory structures, which actually this pool is one. In my opinion here, there already exists a nonconformity on site coverage, and they're removing a pool which is currently, at least on one of the setbacks, at 16 feet 3 inches, I believe, non-conforming. And the new pool, if I'm correct here, as far as dimensionally, as far as setbacks, is going to become conforming.
And smaller, I meant to add.
And basically, I believe the fact that we can grant a variance tonight for the pool itself, and the equipment and so forth, because the new construction will conform current setbacks, and in the circumstances, because of the land and topography as such, and given the fact that it is not going to increase the nonconformity of the site, coverage is fine. As well as, in my opinion, the house itself, when the addition's there. I think that all qualifies well within, the Gill case and other related cases which the Attorney Crowe pointed out. Ken?
Just wondering if we need, I'm looking again for the building structure, the actual addition. Won't a special permit be enough for that?
Yeah. Special permit should be fine for that,
Okay,
because it's an existing house.
I'm just reading the attorney's request for a variance if the above might be.
Right, yeah, I think I believe the attorney's looking for a special permit, for the
Building.
house, the building itself.
Variance for the pool?
Variance in the pool and
But
related
we always
equipment.
say in the alternative,
The
just in
alternative.
case.
Okay.
So you don't have to
Like a
reapply.
a special permit, then we've covered it in these legal ad.
Right. More than once, we've had cases here where they haven't they haven't done that, and we've had to continue because they didn't put that language in the ad.
No other question.
Okay. Al?
No questions.
Just, did I mishear, did you say it's not considered a single-family dwelling, or it is?
It is. It's a
Okay.
pre-existing,
Okay.
non-conforming,
I thought I
single-family
heard you say
dwelling.
it's- it wasn't-
What I think I was trying to express is that the swimming pool is not considered part of the single-family dwelling, because it's detached.
I have no questions.
Yeah, I have no
Okay.
further
Is
questions.
there anyone in the public that wants to address this thing? And, go for it. All right, come on, make an impression on your partner here. Okay, there is no one in the public. I'm going to ask the members, any further questions of the applicant and the attorney?
No.
Okay. All right, that being the case, I'd like to ask a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All right, Ken, motion, and second by Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to sign the 5 voting members tonight. Be Al Donahue, Chris Murphy, John August, myself, and Ken Dixon. Any additional discussion? Like to entertain discussion by the board further?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to close discussion.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Chris, motion, second by Ken. Vote on the motion to close discussion.
Aye.
Okay, approved. I'd like to ask the clerk to make a motion in this case.
Case number 2024-16, 21 Woodland LLC, through their attorney William Kroll, have been granted a special permit as well as a variance.
No, to start with this, just go
No.
this right, and you can't do the variance yet.
Yeah,
Follow that, it's a separate thing. I apologize.
it's all right.
Good.
Don't let it happen again.
No, it's-
The
it's okay.
applicant has been granted a special permit at 325-54, non-conforming structure. The uses of 325, attachment 2, table 2, area regulation 325, attachment 3, table 3, height and bulk regulation to construct a second floor addition above the existing first floor footprint to a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling which will create additional habitable space within the setback. Granting is consistent with the Gale and Diedrich cases, related cases, as they may be testification of one or more existing nonconformities and no new nonconformity, and no substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood or pre-existing nonconforming lot, and a proposed construction will not create additional negative impact with respect to traffic, noise, odor, and congestion. The granting of the special permit is pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaw 325, 54, and 52, excuse me, Mass General Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, and Section 6. Okay. The variance has been granted to remove and replace existing pool equipment, patio, and hardscaping, has been granted as these structures, as well as their location, will conform with the current setbacks and not increase pre-existing non-conforming site coverage. To not grant this variance would create a hardship owing to the circumstances of the shape of the land and topography of the site, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, as a literal enforcement of the provisions of the bylaw would involve substantial hardship to the applicant. The granting of the variance and relief is without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying the substantially derogating from the intent of or purpose of the law. The granting of the variance is pursuant to the Howard zoning bylaws 325, 54, and 52, and Mass General Law 40A, Section 10. Both the special permit and the variance have been granted based upon pre-existing proposed conditions. Site plan by Ryder Wilcox, Inc., dated May 17, 24, and the building and elevation plans by Nietzsche Architect and Interiors, dated May 10, 2024. Any relief not expressly granted hereunto is hereby denied, and all work shall be performed in accordance with the plans submitted with the application. Said grant and approval by are subject to the following conditions. During the life of the project, there will be no demolition, exterior construction, or new landscaping between 30 June and Labor Day of any year. 2, for the life of the approved project, no construction vehicles will be parked.
All.
You have it on they will be parked on the applicant's property and not on a public way or street. And 3, a violation of the terms and conditions of the special permit may be enforced as a violation of Howard zoning bylaws pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A, Section 7, and the Howard zoning bylaws, as these may be amended from time to time.
Point of order for the chair.
Yeah.
Could I ask that you take separate votes? One for the special permit and then one for the variance, just in case there were differences in the outcome, I think it would make
That's-
sense.
That's reasonable.
Okay, and then just one correction, if I may, the site plan you have in front of you by Ryder and Wilcox is now dated May 23rd, 2024, and the clerk read May 17th, it was revised.
May 23rd.
Right.
And the elevation plans, that's still May 10th?
Yes. Thank you.
Any further discussion by the board?
No.
Okay. So, can I have a second for this motion?
Second. Do we need
Good to
to,
hear from
we
John.
need to do that twice?
Huh?
So this is for the special permit, right?
Okay, so,
Per
well,
attorney.
there's a full motion made. We haven't gone to the vote yet. Now we're going to vote on each one, okay? So, I'd like to vote, first of all, on the special permit for granting a special permit for the
Second floor.
constructing a second floor addition above the first floor footprint. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now for the variance for the removal and relocation of the pool deck and related equipment and hardware. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Both motions approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always appreciate it. And I like the new,
Fancy,
Arrangements.
fancy, huh?
yeah,
Your tax dollars, thank you.
yours also, Mr. Donahue.
Attorney Crowell, the next time you're here, you'll owe us 2 stories about the town, but not to, the next time you're here, we didn't get a story about the town tonight, you'll have to give us 2.
Tip O'Neill.
Well, I
Oh,
can,
that's Tip O'Neill, you're right, I'm sorry, okay.
Five stories.
All right, yeah.
so,
Don't egg him on, wait a
do
minute.
you remember,
Maybe a bedtime story that includes a shed.
do you remember the mason jar? Do you remember the mason jar?
Yes.
Ken Mason there? Okay, so one day about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I go in there for lunch, and there's one person in there, big guy with a big overcoat, and it's Tip O'Neill. And he's talking to Ken, and he's standing there, and Ken's saying, well, that'll be X amount of dollars, Tip. And Tip's going like this, and he didn't have any money with him.
Oh, Jesus.
So I pulled out a $20 bill, I said, here, Tip, I'll pay for it. And Ken said, no, don't worry, but you pay me later, Tip. So that was my only interaction my whole life with Tip O'Neill personally, was that
Okay,
I had to bail him
Highly
out.
regarded, too.
You know, the first
Highly
person,
regarded.
He did so much for the food pantry,
Yeah.
with the influence of him and Leo Deal, his right-hand person. And when Bob Murray was running the food pantry, he would just call up Tip, and Tip could get railroad cars of grain and wheat from the Midwest delivered, to Boston, and then trucked down, and just in a phone call. It was amazing, the things that he did.
he was also the first person at Ronald Reagan's side in the hospital when he got shot.
When he got shot,
Would that happen today?
no. You wouldn't cross that aisle.
Democratic
Right.
Speaker of the House
Oh,
and
jeez.
going to the Republican president's bedside.
well,
That's great, that's a great
First
story.
person there.
new world.
All right, so
Thank you very
that's
much,
what I
folks.
have.
Good addition.
Thanks.
You did a fine job. You did a fine job.
Certainly for his constituents.
Okay. Kick things off here, with the approval of the minutes from May 29th.
Good to me, didn't say anything.
So moved, they approved.
Second.
All right, okay, so what,
I approve.
all right, so I have a motion to approve the minutes. That was from Al. Second,
John?
John. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5.
And I'll abstain, as I was not here.
Okay, that's right, okay. 4-0 to approve the minutes. 1 abstention. Okay, new business. I think you guys all aware of the fact that Jack Mee is retiring.
No, I had no clue.
Really?
So our building commissioner is leaving as of July 5th.
Yep, that's his last day.
Okay.
He's retiring, is that what you heard?
Yeah, he's leaving, it's his call, he's retiring, he's,
Turnover starts.
Big loss for us, for sure.
Is that right?
right, yeah, no, I have excellent working relationship with him, I thought he did a fine job in the department.
How long's he been here?
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Barely 2
Not
years.
even 2 years.
Not even that.
So you guys are aware of the fact, it's 14 Atlantic, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So, I make it a habit when I'm in the area and I go to one site, if I'm going by, I kind of check out something we've approved and how it ended up. And I went to 14 Atlantic, they did a fine job on the house construction. And, but I noticed there was a fence on the side of the lot at the corner of Atlantic and Pine that was at least a foot plus or so into town property. So and it looked like it because the fence, here's the stop sign, and here's the fence. So that, the first thing kind of gave it away, at least to me. And I went back, I checked the site plans, and it indicated the fact that the setback of the house was 9.9 feet, 1 inches. And I measured from the foundation to the fence that it ran from 11.1 to 11.8. I kept reported to Jack, and he contacted the builder. There seemed to be an awareness that it may not have been in the correct place. And it was resolved. The fence has been moved now on their own property. And again, just so you there's also and again, for me, I find it, when we give applications, again, things have to be built as per the site plans. And if we're out there traveling around and we notice, like, this doesn't seem right, I'm just suggesting that you kind of take a look at it, and since we approve these things, and say, okay, go back and take a look at it and make a determination of, is there a problem here that got overlooked? And particularly if it's incursion into public property, that's an issue, okay? Particularly in a place like the campgrounds where there is no room.
Yep.
So, yeah, I went back the other day and saw the fence had been changed, the location had been changed. And then I suppose it's a minor detail, but turns out they have put in their own stone curb, which you can pass it around, which is
Outside the stop sign.
outside the stop sign onto the street, and just, that's,
I think I hit that curb when I was driving around today.
I've seen you drive.
You know,
Well,
and,
my truck was over most things.
so it reported that to Jack as well, and, I mean,
Brian, who's supposed to be monitoring that? Isn't it?
well, no one signed off on it yet, and as soon as, I mean, if Jack had gone down, at some point, the house would be inspected for certificate of, for occupancy permit.
Well,
And, you know, so.
That would
gets-
be the building commissioner's function.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah, it's building inspector, building commissioner, it's a building department function, okay? So, and anyways, the people who own 14 Atlantic I'm wondering who made the complaint to the building department, it was me. So anyways, I do feel the fact that it's nice to go back and look at projects that we approve and then say, okay, and sometimes for me, it said like, really? You know, what was I thinking, perhaps sometimes, you know, and look at these things. But at least gives us an education, okay, so. All right, that was my new business. Is there any old business that needs to be discussed?
No.
Well, could I bring up
Yes.
my thing on the new business still?
Sure.
Or revisit the shed thing?
Oh, absolutely, okay. It's
So I
current
was-
business, right.
Unfortunately, I scribble and I do math. So I think the core part, before like we resolve this thing, is I don't agree that 102 feet is the right measurement. It's an 8 by 12 shed. It's 96 square feet, right? And because if you do the math, essentially they added 2 inches all the way around the building. That comes out to what their thing is. Why is that appropriate? Why isn't it the overhang of the roof, which goes even further than that? You know, I've never heard that explanation that the trim was what had to be measured. But I think it's gonna create a world of problems, both for, 8 by 12, 8 by 12 or, any shed that's on the line there. They're marketed that way. The people buy them that way. I think the engineer is wrong in his assessment that that's the square footage of the shed, which would change the entire interpretation. You know, if their 96 square foot shed is okay, is below the threshold, then why would we have to move it like 3 feet?
Now, is it
to
the
be-
interior measurement or is it the exterior
I
measurement?
mean, generally, it's the
Interior measure would be
framing of the floor, right? In my experience, that's, so it's not exactly the interior, because they're gonna lay,
No, it's a footprint.
it's actually the box that it's built on the exterior. It's not, you get shutters, I mean, come on, we're not measuring the shutters that someone puts on the front of it. It makes no sense that that's the determining factor, because I think it's gonna matter a lot with, like, I think maybe it was Ken that first brought it up, saying, if it really is 102 feet, and that's the judgment, there's nowhere anywhere you put it on the property requires a variance.
Oh, no, absolutely. but-
Now we're playing Solomon of saying, well, 5 feet's okay instead of 20 feet or 10 feet, versus if it's not 102 feet, then it's a whole different standard. And
Well,
I think we need to push back and maybe to the applicant that,
And again,
talk to their engineer.
I think we can't, at this discussion here, can't bring up new concepts that we weren't discussing during the meeting,
Right.
okay? So I just want to mention.
But we
that.
were discussing the measurement.
Right, absolutely. So I just want to, I agree. So anything we discuss about, I think it's, we need to keep to the facts that were reviewed during the meeting, okay? From my perspective here, it was the, I'm okay with the fact of considering this thing. The hardship is that, fine, if it's technically 102 by whatever measurement, okay, and we need to get that addressed, how we're gonna do it, and I need to we all need to dive into the building codes and how these things are supposed to be measured. That was new and on me, because you're right, the roof line goes out further than that.
Yes.
And we allow people to have
An overhang.
overhang.
Yeah.
So, the trim around the bottom, that isn't any different than an overhang.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
Less than an
yeah,
overhang.
It's
No,
usually
but what
less
I
than-
mean is the same, it's
Same concept.
the same concept.
Yeah,
The trim.
still protruding from the
So-
box.
So,
right?
if they raised up, instead of that trim being flush with the floor, and they raised it up 6 inches, it'd be an overhang like the roof. I mean,
Yeah.
so, and I looked at the situation that, if that technically is the case, there's a hardship here, because he was sold a bill of goods regarding this is 98 square feet. So I do believe there was an intent, by the applicant to conform to the under 100 feet or less. No,
Well, based on what the discussion is, he did.
Yeah, and I think he genuinely probably thought he was replacing it in the same place, so
Well,
the
yeah.
previous one was okay, why isn't this one okay?
but in my opinion, I'm not gonna question or dive into his mind as to why this project went forward without a permit. Okay? There's been enough history in that site to know that permits are required for just about anything you do.
But are they required for a
Yeah.
shed under 100 square feet?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Still-
Yeah,
a
it's,
smaller
it's,
shed?
it's,
Not a building permit, but you have to do a shed registration.
It's a registration.
The registration is not
And
a
that's
permit.
just to check for zoning compliance.
right, but they have to be showing the fact it's 5 feet from the lot line.
Yeah.
So, and basically, there was an intention, a willful abandonment of taking down the old shed. He gave the town, he didn't give the town, building department, nor this board, the opportunity to look and verify disrepair. We have approved sheds or accessory buildings to be replaced within a reasonable amount on the same footprint as something that's in disrepair. What was there was non-conforming. I would have been fine the fact he replaced it within reason with another non-conforming shed, but since he since he tore it down, he did it without prior approval. Now it's a brand-new shed, and in my opinion, he's got to put it where it meets the setback requirement.
If the original
That's how
shed-
I look at it.
The original shed was in place for 10 years or better.
It's non-conforming, it's approved non-conforming. That's absolutely, so if you want to come back and do a 50-foot shed on top of the existing situation, go for it. If you want something bigger, you got to put it where it's conforming. That's how I look at it. And we've had other cases here where people have replaced garages, have replaced other accessory buildings, and we have typically, within reason, have them keep to the original footprint.
Yeah, I'm just thinking from a nonconformity standpoint of it was slightly more conforming, right? It was still, he went from like 1.6 to 1.9 feet. But he didn't.
Understandable.
But generally, we follow that line, right? So it's like, he didn't get any closer to the property line. The nonconformity is on his property, right? He didn't increase the
I
nonconformity.
understand.
Yeah.
But guess what? That debate was taken away from us by his removing the shed and not having an opportunity to see that, one, it was in disrepair, which is pretty much how the board has approached these things in the past. So that's why I was against it. Okay? But I respect your guys' opinions. Trust me, I'm fine with the fact they didn't agree with me.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just worried about the neighbor effect of,
Well, there,
now, I don't like your shed, you
But-
shouldn't have done it, you need to move it. It's the moving it.
but if it's an existing, pre-existing approved nonconformity,
Right.
there isn't a problem.
Right.
If it's an approved, existing, pre-existing garage, all right, and it's in disrepair, well, they have to go for a variance, because it's an accessory building, if it's within the setback.
So your problem is the fact that he already ripped it down. If he hadn't ripped it down.
He ripped it down, plus he's going for something much bigger than the nonconformity.
See, that's a bigger thing for me, Brian, because the reason he ripped it down, maybe it's because it was in disrepair, but he needs a bigger shed.
Then he
And
has,
you're-
but you're right, but he has ample area in that property to put a bigger shed. See, it's not a hardship if you can put it someplace else.
20-foot setback.
No, but on the normal 5-foot setback. It's not a hardship if it can go someplace else and be conforming.
I would agree with that.
He wanted a bigger shed.
Right.
So put it someplace else.
Put it, and he has an opportunity to put it someplace where it can be conforming. We had 2 years ago, or whatever, we had a guy that, he wanted to put a pool in. And he wanted variance on his setback of where he wanted to put the pool. And he wanted to put the pool like within 8 feet of this lot line over here. Okay, and he required 20 feet. Now, on the other side of the property, there was a ton of room. You know, you'd easily put the pool in 20 feet from the lot line. But he's coming for a variance from us because he didn't get along with that neighbor. Well, that's not a hardship, okay?
So we didn't approve that one? I remember the case, I don't remember
I
the vote.
remember it too, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't approve
I
it.
don't remember the vote.
The
Did we-
bottom-
did
the
we-
bottom-
Did we not give them the variance for that space? We told them they had to
Correct.
go somewhere else?
Yeah.
I didn't remember the vote, so.
I mean, I
No,
think
but
I
you
could
would
get comfortable with saying, all right, if it's a 96, foot one, to say, all right, you gotta move it so it's 5 feet, right? I just have a big problem with saying, if we accept it's 100 foot, and it's in the excess of 100 foot, it's a variance no matter.
Oh, no, I think,
Yeah.
I believe that trimming the bottom, whatever,
Yeah.
that's a 96-foot shed.
Yeah,
And I'm fine with that. As a matter of fact, at some point, I'll probably stop down the shed world there and see what's going on. Okay, let's find out.
I mean, I bought a 10 by 16 but from them, and I properly permitted it. Luckily, it was fine with setbacks, so I got my permit. But, I went with the shutters on the windows and stuff, so I mean, if you did the measurement, but my permit's for 160 square foot shed.
And guess what? When I bought from them too.
Yeah.
And when I sat down, and went with him to get it for it, he said, look, we don't pull the permit, you get the approval, you have to do it.
But they'll do it for you. I paid them to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't, okay.
I was surprised.
All right, so-
I thought they would not do it without it.
Yeah. They told me they wouldn't do it if a variance was required,
Okay.
but I was like 35 feet from the property line. so-
But they told me, I had a, oh, yeah, that's right. And so I went and took care of the permit.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
And I had something that was over 100 feet, so I had to get 20 foot from the setbacks, and then I had to get, I went to an engineer.
Yep.
I went down, I had to, position it, so I knew it was correct, went into the town, and they approved it.
Part of it is I don't want to get into like the building height thing that we did again, of saying, well, how'd you measure your shed?
No.
Did you measure it around here? I just want to trust that when they say it's a 10 by 16 shed, it's 10 by 16.
Well, I will give you this, if I could. An 8 by 12 shed, if there's a 1-inch trim strip, right? So 1 inch goes on each side and on each end. So instead of being an 8 foot, it's 8'2" by 12'2".
Yeah.
Guess what? That's still under 100 square foot, people.
Yeah, they had to
It's
have
not
added-
104.
They added 2. They had to add 2 inches to get to 102.
Yeah, but no, you had 2 inches in this 99.36 square feet.
But again, yeah, and I think, sidewall, that's so I was fine with that, was a, under a 100-foot shed. But since he's doubling the size of the shed, they had an opportunity to properly place it on that property where it was conforming. And I think if anyone, I think going forward, my typical opinion is going to be, if you can do this and put the structure up in a conforming location, that's where you gotta go for it.
Agreed.
And it doesn't warrant a variance.
Agreed.
All in favor?
That argument's good. A motion to adjourn.
All right, so any old business? All right, so, Ken, I don't know you were at the meeting and so forth, but, John, as the longest-serving, alternate, will be replacing, John, Dave, replacing Dave, on the
Can we take a
board's
vote
member.
on that?
What?
I'm in favor of it, just for the record.
Actually,
That's a pain in the ass of
it's,
these calculation things, right? We don't-
and Tim Bailey actually is the longest-serving alternate, but he chose not to want to be a full member.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I believe John has had his interview with the selectmen, and I think probably after hours of discussion, they may have approved him.
Perfect.
We
Congratulations.
talked more about the need for housing in town than we did about.
All right, it is 9:39, and I'd like to someone make a motion to close.
So moved. Second?
All in
Third.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.